What if Naruto was a Kryptonian Part 2? Red Sun. The Other Kryptonian by Cho J. Hulk P9. Start. The son of Krypton meets the Emerald Archer. 2014. Naruto was in his seat on the plane heading from Metropolis to Starling City. Naruto had packed his bags and was moving to Starling for his new job as the supervisor for the book division of the Starling City branch. He did stay in Smallville for a bit to celebrate New Year's but then left afterward for his job. He packed some clothes and other personal items as he managed to find a small apartment for himself and all the furniture would be there when he arrived. Naruto landed in Starling City and then left for his apartment. It was small with one bedroom, a kitchen, living room and a bathroom. He walked in to see the furniture he ordered had arrived but they hadn't set it up. Oh, come on. Naruto said as he picked up the bill from the moving company and saw that assembly was separate and would cost a couple $100. Naruto balled up the bill and threw it away and then super sped around the apartment and quickly put everything together. He put his clothes in his dresser, made his bed, put together his table and desk, moved his couch and cleaned everything up. It was all finished in the span of 2 minutes. Ah, home sweet home. Naruto said as he sat down on his couch and relaxed. He then grabbed his pack with his computer and his paperwork and left his apartment to get some lunch before he went to work to check in. Luckily, there was a Big Belly Burger in Starling City. After that, he went to the publishing company's Starling City location and met with the people there. Now that he was the supervisor of the book division, he had a lot more work to do and people to supervise. He also had to report to the other head supervisors in the publishing company. Naruto then began some paperwork he had to do with the upcoming books the company was going to publish. It dealt with the projected timetable of the releasing books, all the other accompanying benefits and payment methods, the stores the books would be distributed to, possible book tours, and the copyright and ownerships of the books. Which was actually what Naruto was dealing with when he left his office. He grabbed his pack and the copyright papers that the author and the publishing company had filled out and they were going to submit them to the patent agency, but Naruto also had to go to the DA's office to look at the previous copyright infringement cases the publication company had to deal with. The DA's office also had records that would help the publishing company with the paperwork they needed. Naruto's boss had called the DA's office and told him to talk to Laurel Lance. She would help him with anything he needed. Naruto walked into the federal building and saw that it was a fairly slow day. Naruto walked up to the front desk and took out his wallet. Hi, I'm Naruto Kent. My boss called earlier about the paperwork we needed. Naruto said to the receptionist. Yes. May I see ID, please? She asked as Naruto showed her his driver's license. Thank you. Go up 2 floors and Ms. Lance will be there. Thank you. Naruto said as he walked to the staircase. He walked up 2 floors and entered the main office floors to see the city officials and people who worked for the DA's office at work. He walked around and saw a desk with the nameplate Dinah Laurel Lance. Naruto looked at her and froze for a second. She was beautiful. She had amazing hazelnut eyes, beautiful brown hair, and there was something about her that made Naruto freeze. Naruto had dated before and he had girlfriends, but nothing that was ever too serious or that lasted longer than a few months. The longest was 1.5 years, but he called it off in the end. Being an alien and having to keep your past and your powers a secret was tough, but she was gorgeous. Naruto then realized he hadn't moved for 3 minutes, so he quickly cleared his throat and walked up to her desk. Excuse me, Laurel Lance? Naruto asked as Laurel looked up and saw Naruto. She was chewing on a pen cap as she looked over some paperwork when she heard someone. She looked up and saw a gorgeous man her age standing in front of her. He had perfect blonde spiky hair, a chiseled face, and amazing blue eyes. She blushed and realized she was chewing a pen, so she quickly took the pen out of her mouth and put it down. Yes. Laurel responded. Hi, I'm Naruto Kent. I work for the Random House Books publishing company. My boss called earlier about the paperwork I need. Naruto said as Laurel nodded. Her boss told her about someone coming for publishing related paperwork. Yes. They told me you were coming. Sorry, I've just been a little busy. Laurel said as she got up from her seat. It's no problem. I'd imagine it must get pretty busy around here. Naruto said as Laurel grabbed her the files she needed and the key to the file storage room. Actually, it's been fairly quiet, which is unusual for Starling City. Laurel said as she led him from the offices to get the files. So how long have you been in Ada? Naruto asked. Oh, I'm not the Ada. Adam Donner is the Ada, but I've worked at the DA's office for about 9 months. Laurel said. How long have you worked for Random House Publishing? A few years now. I actually got promoted recently. Naruto said. Oh, congratulations. Laurel said. Thank you. I got the promotion and a lot more work to do. Naruto joked as Laurel chuckled. Oh, here we are. Laurel said as she unlocked the door to the massive file room where there were rows and rows of file cabinets. Here it is. Wow. That's a lot of files. Naruto said as he grabbed a cart. Yeah. Laurel replied. Which ones do I need? Naruto asked. Laurel said as she opened her file. The files are located between files CP001 to CZ300. Naruto found the file cabinets and saw it was an entire row of file cabinets. Okay, this could take a while. Naruto said as he put his pack down and quickly began to sort through the files he needed with Laurel's help. 3 hours had passed as Naruto and Laurel managed to get all the files they needed, which was a lot. Because there were so many, Naruto called his work and some interns and file clerks would come over to pick up the files and bring them back to the building. Naruto closed the last file cabinet and looked at the clock and saw it was 7:30. Geez, it's been that long. Laurel, I'm so sorry that it took so long to get all the files. Naruto said. If Laurel wasn't present, he could have used his super speed and could have finished it in under a minute, but she said that she would feel bad if she left Naruto to do all that work. That's all right. I'm sure it would have taken twice as long if you were alone. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. Still, I'm so sorry about this. I feel really bad about this. You have to let me make this up to you. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled. It's all right, Naruto. Really? It's fine. Laurel replied. Please, I took up 3 hours of your time doing my job. The least I can do is buy you dinner to pay you back. Naruto said as Laurel looked at him. Laurel was about to respond, but then her stomach growled as Naruto chuckled a bit. Seems like it's time for dinner anyway. All right. Laurel said as they finished up with the files and walked out of the municipal building. So, know any good places to eat? Naruto asked as he put on his jacket. Yeah, actually there's Mario's down the block. Best pizza in Starling City. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. Had me at pizza. Naruto said as they walked down to the pizza place. They ordered a mushroom and olive pizza and sat down and enjoyed their dinner. Laurel and Naruto engaged in a casual conversation as they enjoyed their pizza. Naruto told her a little about his work and Laurel told him about how she used to work for CNRI before she worked for the DA's office. It was just a regular conversation, nothing that two coworkers or friends wouldn't talk about. They ended up at dinner for about 2 hours and both were enjoying themselves when Laurel noted the time. Well, Naruto, thanks again for dinner, but I need to get home. I got an early day tomorrow. Laurel said as she and Naruto stood up and grabbed their things. No problem. And it was the least I could do after your help today. And I now know a good place to get pizza. Naruto said with a chuckle as Laurel smiled. Well, good luck with all the paperwork you probably have to go through. Laurel said. Yeah, that'll be a fun couple of days. But something tells me that if the company's new line of books is any indicator, then I'll probably be stopping by again with more paperwork. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled and pulled out one of her business cards. She took out a pen and wrote down something on it. Well, here. You can reach me here. If there are any questions or more paperwork you need help with, give my office a call. Laurel said as Naruto nodded and Laurel left. When she left, Naruto looked at the card and saw it was actually a business card from Ada Adam Donner's office and that Laurel was listed as his counsel. She had her number circled in a black pen so Naruto knew who to call. Okay. First night in a new city and I met a nice girl. Go Naruto. Naruto said as he left the pizza place and returned to his apartment. He relaxed and got some water as he turned on his computer and watched some Netflix before bed. Naruto was in the middle of watching an episode of CSI when his super hearing picked up something. Down on the ground. Naruto heard a robbery across town. Time to go to work. Naruto said as he super sped and quickly changed into his costume and flew out of his window and into the sky above Starling City. Naruto flew through the sky and made his way to the robbery being committed at a convenience store. He saw 3 gang-bangers holding up the store owner so Naruto quickly flew down in a blur and knocked the 3 gang-bangers down, broke their guns and tied them up with a bent metal piece of a roof gutter. The store owner called the police as he saw the gang-bangers had been knocked out. Naruto then flew into the air through the city, waiting for his super hearing to pick up anything else. Throughout the night, Naruto stopped 12 muggings, 4 attempted rapes, a high-speed car chase, 7 different shootings and 3 other attempted robberies. Naruto smiled as he helped a lot of people tonight and the police were grateful that these crimes were stopped, but the lingering question was by who, and the arrow also wondered who was doing his job. Line break XXXXX. It had been a week since Naruto moved to Starling City and he kept himself busy with work and helping the city. With his powers, he was able to do his work in a fraction of the time it would normally take so he could go help the people of Starling City and the world. His super hearing picked up a lot of other crimes in nearby cities and Chloe kept him up to date on anything international from the planet. Right now it was Friday and Naruto had finished his work so he was just relaxing in his office and waiting until dinner. He managed to get a reservation at an awesome restaurant in Starling called Table Salt. Naruto was on his computer, checking any global news for any incidents and just saw the same old news of governments around the world wanting to meet Superman and Red Sun or about the US government's control of some of the alien wreckage in Metropolis. Naruto then looked at his wallet and opened it to see the card that Laurel gave him. Maybe he should ask her on a date. Naruto picked up his phone and dialed the number. The phone rang for a bit before it was picked up. Hello, DA's office, Dinah. Laurel Lance speaking. Laurel said as she answered the phone. Hey, Laurel. It's Naruto Kent. Naruto said. Hi. So how was all the paperwork you had to sort through? Laurel asked. Well, that was one afternoon of my life that I'll never get back. Naruto said as Laurel raised an eyebrow. An afternoon. I thought all of that paperwork would take at least a few days. Laurel said as Naruto cleared his throat. Yeah, you think it would. But, I had a lot of the interns help me sort through it so it didn't take as long. Naruto said as he covered his tracks. Oh, wow. Lucky you. So, did you need some more paperwork or are you sending in some paperwork for us to go over? Laurel joked as Naruto chuckled. No paperwork. At least, not yet. I was actually calling because I wanted to know if you would like to have dinner tonight. Naruto asked. Dinner? Laurel asked. Yeah, I know it's kind of last minute but if you're free, I have reservations at Table Salt tonight at 7:30 and I was wondering if you would like to have dinner with me. Naruto asked as he heard Laurel shuffle a bit over the line. Okay. I'll see you at dinner then. 7:30. Bye, Naruto. Laurel said. Bye, Laurel. Naruto said as they hung up. Okay, note to self. Watch the excuses. Naruto got his stuff, cleaned up his office and super sped back to his apartment. Naruto took a shower and got cleaned up to get ready for his date tonight. Naruto was in his kitchen getting a drink of water when his phone rang. He picked it up to see it was Clark. Hey, Clark. What's up? Naruto asked. Hey, I'm just checking in. How's Starling City? Clark asked. Not bad. Granted the city has probably seen better days but it's not bad. Work keeps me busy enough and saving this city is a bit of a full-time job not to mention with all the international incidents Chloe's been keeping me up to date with. Naruto said as he poured himself a cup of water. Believe me, I get it. Metropolis has no shortage of bad guys who have been cropping up lately. Especially since we beat General Zod. Have you been watching the news about us, lately? Clark asked. Don't remind me. Let's just be on our best behavior. So how has it been at the planet? Naruto asked. Not bad. I'm working with Chloe and Lois mostly for now. We've been writing a few stories here and there on what happened and Lois has been writing a lot on Superman's adventures in Metropolis. Chloe and Jimmy got Pulitzers for the article and photos. Clark said. Yeah, I saw. I called them before to congratulate them. Naruto said. Well, not everyone liked what they wrote or how they feel about us. Clark said. Yeah, but you can't expect everyone to like us at first. Once they get to know us it won't matter. Naruto said. Yeah, say that to Lex Luthor. Clark said. Lex Luthor. Head of LexCorp. Naruto asked. Or actually LuthorCorp as it's more commonly known. He's been making it very clear in his public interviews that he does not like us at all. He blamed us for the city attack, the invasion and he's been turning people against us. Clark said. Well, we can't exactly do anything. He has the right to express how he feels. Come on, Clark. Just like when we were younger, we can't let him get to us. That's exactly what he wants. Naruto said. Right. Anyway, enough of my complaining. So what are you up? Clark asked. Nothing right now. I'm just getting ready for dinner. Naruto said. Oh, you have a work dinner tonight? Clark asked. Not a work thing. I actually have a date tonight. Naruto said. Really? Clark asked. Don't be so surprised. I've had dates in the past. Naruto said. All right. With who? Clark asked. Her name's Laurel Lance. She works with the Ada here in the city. She helped me with some paperwork for my job. Naruto said. Huh. Okay. Have a good time. Oh, by the way, did Chloe ask you to come into the city tomorrow? Clark asked. Yeah, she was kind of vague about it. Do you know why? Naruto asked. No idea. She just told me that she wanted to see us this weekend. She said it was important. Clark said. I wonder what it is. All right, Clark, I got to go. I'll see you tomorrow. Naruto said. See you, Naruto. Clark said as he hung up. Naruto put his phone down and finished his drink of water and saw it was nearly time for his dinner reservation, so he quickly put on his dress shirt and sports jacket and then super sped out of his apartment into the restaurant. He super sped through the city to the restaurant and managed to get there a bit early and arrived in the alley next to the restaurant. He walked out onto the street and fixed his shirt and stood in front of the restaurant as he waited for Laurel. He waited for 5 minutes when a silver Toyota Corolla rolled up the restaurant and the valet walked over. Laurel walked out of the car and smiled as the valet gave her a ticket. Laurel was wearing a beautiful black dress in high heels. She grabbed her purse and walked over to Naruto, who she thought looked very handsome. Wow, you look amazing. Naruto said with a smile as Laurel smiled back. Thank you. And you look very handsome. Laurel said as they walked over to the door and Naruto opened it as she walked in. They walked in to see the restaurant in the midst of its dinner hours and was fairly busy. Table Salts was one of the nicest and fanciest restaurants in the city, so everyone in the restaurant was in dress clothes. Wow, I don't think I've ever been here. I'm glad. That'll make tonight special. Come on. Naruto said as they walked over to the hostess desk. Good evening. Welcome to Table Salts, do you have a reservation? The hostess asked. Yes. It's under Kent. Naruto said. Yes, I see it here, Mr. Kent. Your table is ready. Please follow me. The hostess said as she grabbed 2 menus and led them to their table. Naruto and Laurel took their seats as their hostess handed them their menus. Here are your menus, your waiter will be with you shortly. Enjoy your evening. Thank you. Naruto said as they opened their menus and their waiter came by. Hello, welcome to Table Salts. My name is Mark and I will be your waiter tonight. May I start you off with some drinks? If you would like wine, we have a very nice Merlot I believe you will enjoy, the waiter asked. Yes, that sounds fine. And some water too. Naruto said as the waiter nodded and left. Naruto then turned to Laurel and smiled. I hope the bottle of wine was okay. Yeah, sounds great. Laurel replied. Oh, good. I'd be kind of embarrassed if you didn't. Naruto said with a chuckle as Laurel chuckled. This place is amazing. How did you get a reservation here? Laurel asked. Well, it's one of the bonuses for working at the publishing company for so long. My boss has some connections and managed to get me a reservation here. Granted, I'll probably have to step up at work for the next couple of months, but I think it'll be worth it. Naruto said as Laurel smirked. Only time will tell. Laurel said as she took a sip of water. The waiter brought over the bottle and showed it to them. Here is the Merlot, he said as he opened the bottle and poured a little bit into each of their wine glasses. They swished it around and took a little sip and it was perfect. It's perfect. Laurel said. Yes, thank you. Naruto said as the waiter poured them their 2 glasses. Are you ready to order? The waiter asked. I am. I'll have the tuna crudo and the roasted chicken. Laurel said as she handed her menu to the waiter. I'll have the shrimp bisque and the duck confit please. Naruto said as the waiter took his order. I'll get them out to you both. Enjoy your evening. The waiter said as he left and Naruto picked up his glass and took a sip of wine. You know, I was kind of surprised that you asked me out on a date. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I kind of surprised myself. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed our dinner before and that mountain of file sorting. Granted, not exactly a great first impression but an impression nonetheless. Naruto joked as Laurel chuckled. I'll definitely say it was one of my memorable encounters that led to a date. Laurel joked back. I'm glad. To be honest, I haven't been on dates in a long time, so I guess I'm a little rusty. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled, seeing how nervous he was. It was cute. Well, you're off to a good start. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. So, how are you liking Starling City so far? I guessed from our first meeting you were new. So far it's been interesting. It's only been a few days so far. But it's not that different from Metropolis or Central City. Naruto said as he took a sip of wine. Oh, so you're from Metropolis? Laurel asked. No, actually. But I've been there a lot. My brother and some friends work for the Daily Planet though. I don't suppose you've heard of Lois Lane, Chloe Sullivan and James Olsen. Naruto asked as Laurel looked at him. She knew those names, probably everyone in the country now knew those names. Of course. They're the reporters that covered the alien invasion from Metropolis. I've read that paper probably a dozen times. They won Pulitzers for that article. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. Yup. Although, Jimmy was a photographer before he was promoted to photojournalist. Naruto said. How do you know them? Laurel asked. Well, my brother and I have known Chloe since we were kids. She's our best friend and believe me, she's had the blood of a reporter since she was 5. Lois is Chloe's cousin and we met Jimmy when we graduated college. He was interning at the Planet. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. Wow. You know some pretty famous people. Laurel said. Well, I'm not the only one. You know Oliver Queen, billionaire playboy and CEO, so we're kind of even. Naruto said as Laurel looked at him. How did you know that? Laurel asked. Oliver Queen is on Chloe's cheat list along with Bruce Wayne and George Clooney. She showed me an article from when he went missing 6 years ago and I saw it had a picture with you in it. Naruto said as he saw Laurel seemed a bit uncomfortable with it. Sorry, that wasn't appropriate for a first date. Not a good impression. No, it's fine. I'm past that. Laurel said as their appetizers had come. Again, sorry. Okay, no more talk about that now. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled seeing him flustered and nervous. They ate their meals and enjoyed some more conversation as Naruto did his best to avoid anything that could bring up bad memories. They talked about their work and Laurel asked him about the alien invasion in Metropolis. Naruto told her that he along with Clark, Lois, Chloe and Jimmy were in the city when the attack happened and he told her a little about the aliens and Superman and Red Sun. Then the conversation moved to their interests, some of their funniest memories, where they went to school and their families, although that part was kept very brief for both of them. It had been about 3 hours as Naruto and Laurel were both having a great time. They had just finished their desserts and were enjoying some desert wine as they were one of the last remaining couples in the restaurant nearing closing time. They were both laughing from a story that Naruto was telling about a prank he pulled off in middle school. So wait, you actually stole your neighbor's truck and took it for a joyride through your town? Laurel asked as Naruto chuckled. Yes, but in my defense I had just seen Fast and Furious and my dad wouldn't let me borrow the pickup. And it's not my fault he left his keys in the truck. Naruto replied as Laurel chuckled. Oh my god. You must have been in so much trouble for that. Now was this before or after you paint-bombed City Hall? Laurel asked as Naruto thought. That was before actually. That combined with the joyride put me into serious hot water with my parents. It's not every day parents answer the door to see the sheriff with their child in handcuffs. Naruto said as Laurel looked at him. He put you in handcuffs? Laurel asked. Yes, but in his defense that was the second time I caused that much trouble that required every single police car to chase me. Naruto said as Laurel laughed. So what did your parents do? Laurel asked. Well, I was grounded for a year and driven to school by police car to make sure I would behave. And there was the detention and community service. It was after that incident that my parents told me to get a hobby. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled. Why? Laurel asked. Because the sheriff would have arrested me the next time I did something like that. And that's how I got into writing and that's pretty much my job now. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. Wow. I've had my fair share of childhood rebellion but you take the crown. Laurel joked as Naruto chuckled. Well, in my town, you needed to find ways to keep you busy. And working on my dad's farm was great but you needed some excitement every now and then. Naruto said as Laurel looked at him. What do you mean? Laurel asked. I'm sorry. Naruto replied. You said your dad's farm, not your farm. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. You picked that up, didn't you? Naruto said. Yeah, the farm's been in my father's family for probably 100 years. My brother and I were adopted. Oh. Sorry, I didn't know. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. No, it's fine. My parents were great and I'm practically a Kent in all but blood but that didn't matter to them. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. Well, I think that's the end of that question. Laurel said. It's fine, Laurel. If you have a question, go ahead. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. No, I think that's enough questions for one night. Besides, it's getting late and I think that it'll cost us extra to keep the restaurant open this late. Laurel said as they looked around and saw that some of the workers were cleaning up. Right. Come on. Naruto said as they grabbed their stuff and Naruto left a tip on the table. They left the restaurant as the valet went to pick up Laurel's car. Well, Laurel, I had a great time tonight. So did I. I didn't think I could have this much fun in a long time. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. Well, I'm glad that I could make this a memorable first date. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. She then took out her phone, quickly texted something and sent it. Naruto picked up his phone to see he got Laurel's cell number. Now you can reach me from my phone instead of at the office. For the next time we go out. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. Oh, so there will be a next time. Naruto asked as Laurel chuckled. Well, I'd be more than up to a next time, but I think that's also up to you. Laurel said as Naruto smirked. Well, I would very much like to go out with you again. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. The valet then returned with Laurel's car and stopped next to them. Your car, Ms. Lance. The valet said as he walked over and handed her the keys. Well, thanks again for the date, Naruto. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. It was my pleasure. Naruto said as they hugged goodbye and Laurel kissed his cheek. Good night. Laurel said as she got in her car and drove away. Good night. Naruto said as he watched her drive away. Naruto then walked down the street and was heading home when his super hearing picked up the sound of some gangbangers attempting a robbery. Back to work. Naruto said as he ran into an alley, changed into his costume and super sped through the city to stop the robbery. It was just another night for Red Sun. Line break XXXXX. Naruto stayed out for a few more hours after his date ended with Laurel to keep the city safe. He then got some sleep and rest for his trip back to Metropolis in the morning. Naruto woke up at 11 a.m., took a shower and grabbed a quick snack before he super sped to Metropolis, stopping in the alley behind the Daily Planet at about 11:30. Naruto walked into the building and made his way up to meet with Clark, Chloe, Lois and Jimmy. Naruto walked through the reporting floor to see that it was kinda busy. Apparently, Lex Luthor was making some kind of weapon demonstration at the LexCorp building and it might score him a billion-dollar government contract. Naruto made his way to Clark's desk, which was right across from Lois's desk. He walked over to see Clark was at his desk and typing on his computer. He was wearing a white button-up and tie with his jacket on his chair. He saw that Clark's hair was combed and neat and he had his glasses on, the meek Clark Kent. I see you've gotten comfortable here. Naruto said as Clark turned and smiled. Well, it wasn't that big of a change. Just like back at the Torch. Clark said as he hugged his brother. Good to see you. You look good. Well, I had a great time last night so I feel great. Naruto said as Clark smiled. Oh, really? Nice to see you back out there, Naruto. Naruto heard as Lois walked over. Hey, Lois. Naruto said as they hugged and he kissed her cheek. Smallville told me you had a date last night. I think it's great you're getting back out there. Lois said. Well, she's really great and we had a good time. Where's Chloe? Naruto asked. She's coming over with Jimmy. They're in a meeting with Perry. Lois said. We still have no idea what she wants to tell us. Clark said. You think it has to do with the press conference Luthor is holding? Naruto asked. It's possible. I've heard some whispers that this new weapon could be something that the government could use in the event of another invasion like with Zod. Luthor hasn't exactly kept his feelings about aliens a secret in the past few weeks. Lois said. Nope, not about that. They heard as they saw Chloe and Jimmy walk up to them. So, what's this about? Naruto asked. Come on, follow me. Chloe said as they followed Chloe to one of the private meeting rooms that the reporters often used when Perry called meetings to talk about headlines. They walked in as Chloe locked the door and activated her computer and set it up with the projector. I'm glad you guys came. This was something that was best talked about in person. What's going on, Chloe? Naruto asked. I'm not sure, but my gut tells me it's nothing good. About a week after you guys put Zod back in the Phantom Zone, Perry and a lot of the other media outlets all over the country looked into the global effects of the attack. I saw that one of our reporters had found something that I think you guys will want to see. Chloe said as she brought up some images and put them in slideshow mode. The images were of a large crater followed by two craters in Smallville and scenes of death and destruction. Oh my god. Jimmy said as they looked at the pictures. It's like your fight with Zod, but that was in Metropolis and Smallville. Lois said as they looked at the pictures. After Zod was sent back to the Phantom Zone and the world went back to normal, there have been numerous reports and sighting of the weird and supernatural all over the world. It's like the wall of weird went global. The worst was in small village in the Kashmir region of India. The entire village was decimated. Chloe said as she brought up the images, and it looked like the village was in the middle of a war. Do you think some of Zod's soldiers had left the ship and went on a killing spree? Clark asked. I don't think so. Whatever the survivors reported didn't sound like a Kryptonian. Chloe said. So the question remains, what could have happened? Jimmy said. Did the local authorities have any idea what happened? Lois asked. Nothing concrete, but one of these bizarre incidents occurred in Alaska, and eyewitnesses say that prior to the strange events, there was a shooting star in the sky about 9 weeks ago. Chloe said as Naruto realized something. Wait, that was the same time that Clark and I escaped from the Phantom Zone and stopped Zod. Naruto said as Clark looked at him. Do you think there was a chance that something followed you guys? Jimmy asked. We're not sure. Aside from the bright flash of light, I didn't see anything when we escaped from the zone. Clark said as Naruto nodded. But we need to be sure. Have you been able to track any of them, Chloe? Naruto asked. Barely. The only thing I've been able to dig up were some poorly taken photos of the destruction and one picture of a crater. Chloe said as she brought it up. That looks like the craters made from the meteor shower in Smallville. Lois said. And like the ones we made when we escaped. We need to find more. Clark said as Chloe nodded. I've been trying, but I think our best bet would be satellite images. Chloe said. I thought the satellites went down during the attack. Jimmy asked. All government and a few privately owned ones, but a few remained active. The satellites owned by Queen Consolidated, Wayne Enterprises and Star Labs were the only ones that were still online during Zod's attack. If we can get access codes to those satellites, then we might be able to piece together what happened that day. Chloe said. Well, none of us have access to those satellites. We'll have to come up with something. Naruto said as when his super hearing picked up the sound of someone coming. Someone's coming. Chloe turned off her computer and shut the projector off as someone walked in and the group acted like normal. So I'm thinking we all grab a cab and head back to Smallville for dinner this weekend. Clark said as the group acted like it was normal conversation when the door opened and Perry walked in. Kent, Lane, Sullivan, I want you three to head to the LexCorp building for the demonstration that Luthor is giving. I want a statement from Luthor. There will be military leaders there as well. I want comments and statements. Olsen, I'll need pictures. Get to it. Perry said. Right away, Mr. White. We'll leave lickety-split. Clark said as he fixed his glasses while Perry just looked at him and left. Lickety-split. Really? Naruto asked. It's part of disguise. Naruto, want to come along? Clark asked. Sure, why not? Naruto said as they left for the LexCorp building. Naruto, Clark, Lois, Chloe and Jimmy were in front of the LexCorp building where a large podium and screens were set up for the presentation along with a large box covered by a tarp. There are a lot of people in the crowd ranging from other reporters, people in Lex's security team, board members or shareholders and other high-ranking members of society that were invited while the rest of the crowd was bystanders. On the podium, there were chairs for high-ranking military officers that were invited to the demonstration and would also discuss the possibility of a contract. Naruto was in the crowd watching and looking around as Clark got a quote from one of the engineers who worked on the project, and Chloe and Lois were interviewing a general that knew Lois's father. Jimmy was taking pictures when a woman stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome you to this demonstration. At this time, I would turn your view to the monitors to witness our special presentation on the long-awaited debut of the new advancement in military defense, the Lexo Suit 5000. The presenter spoke as the screens showed a large bipedal robot with 2 giant cannons on one arm and 4 miniguns on the other. The screens then showed the Lexo suit going through training exercises and easily taking down cardboard cutouts of soldiers and unmanned drones. Constructed from a patented alloy, the Lexo suit is virtually indestructible. As seen in this test footage against automated tanks, the Lexo suit stands up to heavy punishment and returns it in kind. The presenter said as the Lexo suit took 12 tank rockets and emerged without a scratch, then fired only one rocket to destroy a tank. Guiding this suit is a single soldier, made more powerful than an entire battalion. And now, here's to the future. The presenter said as the tarp was removed to show a working model of the Lexo suit on stage. And the man who created it, Lex Luthor. 1. Lex stepped forward as everyone cheered and photographers took pictures. Luthor took in and absorbed all the adulation and applause. Naruto clapped a bit when his super hearing picked up something closing in. It sounded like heavy trucks speeding towards the LexCorp tower and the sound of helicopters closing in. Clark heard this too and handed his pad to Lois. "Excuse me, Lois," Clark said as he and Naruto left the crowd and made their way to someplace secluded where they could change. Chloe, Jimmy and Lois saw this and began to move someplace with some cover. Luthor quieted the crowd as he approached the podium. "Thank you. I view the Lexo suit not as an instrument of war but as an instrument of security. So that our nation and our planet will be safe in the future," Luthor said when all of a sudden, 4 heavy armored vehicles broke through the fence surrounding the LexCorp building and plaza and smashed through parked vehicles and security checkpoints. The 4 armored vehicles stopped near the front of the building and turned around. The doors to the vehicles opened up and 20 men dressed in black combat gear got out in military formation. They were armed with automatic rifles, light machine guns and grenade launchers. The tops of the armored vehicles opened up to reveal hatches where 4 men stood up and brought out miniguns. The group then began shooting at the building and in the air, causing the crowd to scatter and run in fear. The men opened fire and killed any security guard or police officer that tried to shoot them. The remaining security guards and officers that weren't immediately mowed down took cover as bullets flew all over the place. Then 2 armored attack choppers followed by a Harrier chopper descended near the plaza. The Harrier chopper hovered above the Lexo suit before releasing several grapple hooks and chains. 5 men broke off from their task of keeping the police away and used the grapple line and chains to hook the Lexo suit up to the chopper. The chopper then reeled in the Lexo suit and then took off with the other choppers firing a barrage of missiles near the tower to keep people away while the Harrier chopper got some distance. The barrage of missiles compromised one of the towers in the LexCorp plaza, causing it to collapse. Lois, Jimmy and Chloe ran when they saw Superman and Red Sun fly into the plaza and stop the tower from falling onto the crowd. Superman held it up and moved it back into place while Red Sun flew to a nearby construction site, got some steel beams and fixed one of the broken support columns. He propped the metal beams up and then used his heat vision to weld them into place. Red Sun then quickly turned to see the choppers in the distance and the armored vehicles leaving with the last one about to leave. The mini-gunner on the last armored vehicle saw Red Sun, so he took aim at the crowd to distract him. He fired his minigun as Red Sun quickly flew and appeared in front of the crowd and took the blunt of the minigun fire, which broke or bounced off his skin. Superman then flew down and smashed into the armored vehicle and knocked it over, causing it and the 5 men who were in the van to fall out. The men scrambled to their feet, loaded their guns and fired at Superman and Red Sun, but the bullets just bounced off. Superman and Red Sun then walked forward, pushed them lightly, which actually pushed them through the air and knocked them against the armored vehicle. Red Sun picked up their guns and snapped them in half. One of the men pulled out his sidearm and emptied his entire clip, but it did nothing. Red Sun then super sped forward and grabbed the men. "If the bigger bullets and the minigun did nothing, why did you think the smaller one would?" Red Sun asked as he broke the pistol and knocked the man out by tapping him on the head. Superman and Red Sun then tied up the 5 men by using vehicle door and wrapped it around them. "You take the ground and I'll take the sky," Superman said as Red Sun nodded. "On it," Red Sun said as he flew to the city while Superman flew into the air. Red Sun flew through the city and used his supervision to track down the armored vehicles that were getting away. He found them going down Main Street and flew after them. The vehicles sped up and the miniguns fired in the air to kill Red Sun, but the bullets were useless. Red Sun used his heat vision and blew out the tires of the vehicles, caused them to either flip or skid to a stop. Then in a blur of red and black, the armored vehicles were disabled, the guns were destroyed and the men were tied up and secured. "Now you all can wait here for the police," Red Sun said before he flew into the air to go check on Superman. He flew through the air and saw the 2 armored attack choppers had been disabled and placed on rooftops of buildings, but a rogue missile had flown through the air and hit the engine of a flying commercial airliner. The airliner then took a dive as the blown engine caused a system malfunction and it couldn't sustain flight. Red Sun then flew with Superman as the 2 saw the airliner descending rapidly and was on a crash course for Metropolis. They flew in the air to stop the plane as Superman got to the front and tried to slow it down while Red Sun flew to the engine and used his freeze breath to put out the fire and prevent a gas explosion. Red Sun then flew to the other wing and grabbed it as his hands made cracks and dents in the steel. He slowly began to bend the wing so the plane would turn in the air and avoid any buildings while Superman slowed the plane down but had to make sure he didn't exert too much force or he would smash right through the airplane. The airplane then got within the limits of Metropolis, so Red Sun flew underneath the airplane and lifted it up to avoid the plane from smashing into a building. They then kept pushing as the plane slowly began to slow down as they reached the outskirts of Metropolis and managed to set it down safely. Phew. That was heavy. Superman said as Red Sun walked out from underneath the airplane and opened the airplane door, causing the emergency slide to inflate. Bystanders and the people in the plane cheered and applauded for Superman and Red Sun, who then flew away as the police and paramedics arrived. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and Clark returned to the planet to check up on Chloe, Lois and Jimmy and see if they had any leads on who attacked the demonstration and stole Luthor's war suit. They saw the floor was in a frenzy, most likely trying to get a special edition out as soon as possible about Red Sun and Superman's acts of heroism and Red Sun's return to Metropolis. Clark looked around but didn't see Lois or Chloe. Perry, where's Lois and Chloe? Clark asked Perry. Relax, Kent. I sent them over to get a statement from Luthor after his demonstration. They should be back soon. And I want your passage on my desk by 9. Perry said. Yes, Mr. White. Clark said as Perry nodded and left. He seems nice. Naruto said. Perry's nice once you get to know him. And he's a great boss. Clark said as he saw Lois and Chloe arrived. There they are. Smallville's, nice save. Lois said. Yeah, but the thieves outsmarted us. We'd protect people so they could make their escape. But how did they get 4 armored vehicles and 3 choppers into Metropolis airspace? Naruto asked. I don't know, but something seems a bit fishy about this whole thing. We went to interview Luthor and he did seem kind of angry about what happened to his suit, but something doesn't feel right. Chloe said as they saw Jimmy arrive. Guys, I got something you'll want to see. Jimmy said as they moved to one of the meeting rooms to talk privately. What did you find, Jimmy? Clark asked. Some interesting things. During the attack, I kept my camera taking pictures automatically, and when I went to review them I found something interesting. The attack on the demonstration was obviously to take Luthor's battle suit, but I don't think it was a theft. I think Luthor wanted it stolen. Jimmy said. Why? Lois asked as Jimmy brought up one photo before the attack that looked like Jimmy had snooped in on a private conversation of Luthor's. I noticed Luthor made himself very scarce before the presentation, which is odd since he usually likes to showboat, and I found something. Look at who he's talking to. Look familiar? Jimmy asked as they saw Luthor talking to some guy in a business suit. Who is he? Naruto asked. Here, maybe you'll recognize him here. This was taken at last year's International Industrial Conference. Recognize the guy in with the medals? Jimmy asked as they picture was of Luthor shaking hands and smiling with some man in a military suit with a lot of foreign medals and flag with the guy in the business suit next to him. Wait, that's the reagent of Kaznia. Lois said as Jimmy nodded. The US and Kaznia haven't been on the best of terms in the past decade. The regent has been employing a unique team of mercenaries to do his bidding and take out his political opponents. Their signature was 4 armored vehicles and 2 choppers, like the ones we saw today. Jimmy said. But the president broke diplomatic ties with Kaznia years ago. Naruto said as Chloe began to piece it together. That's right, so any Kaznian official would be detained on site, but this mercenary group isn't official Kaznian forces. But how did they get so close and why? Chloe asked. Maybe Luthor wanted to sell his suit. Think about it. A suit with that kind of firepower would go for billions on the black market, and I'm sure Kaznia would pay a lot for something that could turn the tides in any conflict. Naruto said. So Luthor hid the selling of his suit and made it look like an abduction. This way there's a greater chance of hiding the sale if it looks like a robbery, and I'm sure Luthor was more than able to grease a few hands to get the mercenaries into the city. And Luthor couldn't sell his suit to them without it being an act of treason. Lois said. Hence the robbery. And Luthor seemed to slip away with calm and ease when the attack began. If he was innocent, he'd be a lot more freaked out if someone stole his billion-dollar battle suit. Jimmy said. Nicely done, Jimmy. Naruto said as Jimmy smiled. Yeah, but it's a theory. We'll need to prove it. Lois said as they all tried to figure out how to prove it. Why don't you guys just fly over the city and use your X-ray vision? Chloe asked. I did that before we came back. I tried to find the chopper but I couldn't, so either they left for somewhere out of the city limits or the suit must in some place that's lead-lined. Naruto said. And we might not have enough time. They could move the suit before we find it. Clark said as Chloe got an idea. If Luther helped organize this then he'd want a way for the mercenaries to get in and out of the city and country quickly and with a way to avoid any complications. The problem is, Luther practically owns the entire city, so there could be dozens of ways he could move the suit. Lois said. Not anymore. After the airliner was shot down, I'm sure that the ATC wouldn't let another plane enter or leave Metropolis airspace for a while. Naruto said. And with the gear and equipment, the mercenaries would be here a few days early to prepare and plan escape routes. Lois said. Well, let's narrow that down. Clark said as they got to work to try and find where the suit could be. The group went into the listing and paperwork of every single warehouse, dockhouse and harbor storage to try and track down the mercenaries and locate where the suit could be. Naruto was there to help sift through the mountain of paperwork they were looking through to try and find a lead, while Clark quickly finished the passage for Perry for the paper. They kept looking when Naruto noticed something in one of the old photos that Lois had done on a smuggling story that dealt with the Metropolis docks about 2 weeks ago. Naruto saw something, so he focused his vision, and underneath the LexCorp logo on the tanker was the residual red and black from a Kaznian flag logo. Lois, do you have any contacts down at the docks? Naruto asked. Yeah, Bibo, he's one of the dock union representatives. Lois said. Call him and ask him about the tanker in this photo. Naruto said as Lois grabbed the photo and called Bibo. Hey, Bibo. I'm calling you regarding a new story I'm working on. Remember that large tanker we saw with the LexCorp logo? Has it been moving any cargo or anything? Lois asked. Nothing. Nothing on or off, and they won't let any of the dock workers help. It's leaving now. Naruto, Clark B. Wish Chloe was cut off when Naruto and Clark super sped away. Careful. Thanks, Bibo. Lois said as she hung up. Come on, Smallville's about to break a huge story for us. Lois, Chloe and Jimmy left for the docks while Naruto and Clark had changed and were flying to the docks to locate the tanker. They flew in the air and saw the tanker making its way out of the harbor via tugboat. Red Sun used his X-ray vision and saw people walking around the deck of the ship, but they weren't sailors or dock workers. Dock workers don't carry around guns and have an armory on the ship. He focused his vision and saw one part of the ship's bowels that his X-ray vision couldn't penetrate. That's it. Red Sun said as he and Superman flew down to stop the tanker. The men on the ship saw Red Sun and Superman closing in, so they pulled out their guns and began shooting. Red Sun and Superman landed on the deck of the ship as the bullets kept flying, but they did nothing. Red Sun and Superman super sped around and took out the men on the deck of the ship. The mercenary group leader, John Corbin, was in the captain's room and saw Superman and Red Sun arrive, so he decided to kill them himself with the help of Luther's suit. Time to take the suit for a test drive. Hold him off. Corbin shouted as he ran below deck. Red Sun walked along the deck of the ship while the mercenaries kept shooting at him. Red Sun super sped forward, grabbed 3 mercenaries and tossed them into the water and threw a life donut as well. Superman then secured some mercenaries using a metal railing. Red Sun made his way to the door of the inside of the ship when the captain stepped out, armed with an RPG. Red Sun, take this. The captain shouted as he fired the RPG, and it hit Red Sun and exploded in a flash of smoke and fire. The captain smirked, thinking he killed Red Sun, but that was immediately dashed when Red Sun stepped out of the cloud of smoke and fire and appeared completely fine. Was that it? Red Sun asked as the captain pulled out his gun and fired, but Red Sun super sped forward, covered the barrel with his hand, and the gun exploded in the captain's hand. Arg! The captain shouted as he held his hand. Red Sun grabbed him and pulled him up. Don't worry, the police can help you with that. Red Sun said as he tapped him on the head and knocked him out. Red Sun and Superman then smashed through the cargo ramp hatch and floated down into the cargo hold of the ship and saw dozens of boxes and cargo containers. They landed in the cargo hold and looked for the suit of armor. I don't see it, Superman said. It's right here. They heard a voice from a speaker say before they were both hit by 2 large, powerful rockets and knocked into a cargo container. They pulled themselves out of the broken and bent cargo container to see Luther's Lexo suit walk towards them. Greetings, aliens. My name is John Corbin and I will be your executioner today. Corbin said as he took aim and fired a volley of high-powered rockets at the Kryptonians who got hit and knocked out of the cargo hold, through the air and into the harbor. Corbin smiled as he activated the suit's thrusters and flew out of the cargo hold and landed in the Metropolis docks. He then pressed the radio and set it to a communication frequency. "It's Corbin. Tell the Regent his war suit is coming to him via special delivery," Corbin said as he saw the water of Metropolis Harbor rush like something was swimming towards him. Corbin activated his miniguns as the 4 guns fired large .50 caliber bullets that would shred a nuclear-hardened tank to confetti. Corbin kept firing when all of a sudden he felt his suit stagger like something had landed on the head, and it was Red Sun. Before Red Sun could punch through the suit, Corbin flipped a switch and a powerful electrical current flowed all over the suit, stopping Red Sun. Corbin then shook him off and punched him in the air with one of the war suit's arms. He then fired his miniguns and the rockets and knocked Red Sun through the air and into an anchored tanker. But Corbin was so focused on Red Sun that it gave Superman the chance to fly out of the water and punch the suit and knocked it through 2 warehouses and into the street. Superman flew after the suit followed by Red Sun as it was stopped near a construction site. Corbin maneuvered the suit back onto its legs, but Red Sun flew forward and landed a punch to the suit and knocked it back. Red Sun landed another punch and the suit skid back to the construction site. Red Sun flew forward to land another punch, but Corbin swung one of the arms down and smacked Red Sun into the dirt. He then slammed his arm down again and knocked Red Sun into the ground when Superman tackled the robot through the construction site, taking down the building that was being constructed. Red Sun got up and spit some dirt out of his mouth when he saw the building begin to swerve, so he grabbed some spare metal beams and fixed the metal supports to keep the building from collapsing. Red Sun turned to see Corbin firing his miniguns at Superman, who picked up a cement truck and hurled at the suit, causing an explosion. Red Sun saw the explosion destroy some cars and the power lines. Red Sun saw broken power lines fall on a minivan filled with a family, so he quickly flew down and grabbed the power lines. He cracked the lines and stopped the excess electricity flow. "Go get to safety," Red Sun said as the father nodded and drove away. Red Sun turned to see the war suit get back up after the cement truck explosion, and it was still fine and functional. Corbin grabbed Superman and threw him into a police car. He then squished Superman and the car together and threw it down the street before firing 2 rockets and blowing them both up. Red Sun flew down the street and punched the suit down the street. He then jumped on it and punched through the metal plating on the left arm socket and tore the robot arm off. Red Sun then picked up the suit and tossed it away as Superman grabbed the suit and threw it in the air. As the suit flew up, Red Sun flew up and then slammed it back down to the street. With all that punishment, the armor plating began to crack and bend and the wiring of the suit began to malfunction. Corbin tried to take aim with his remaining arm, but Superman flew forward and ripped it off. He then used the arm like a baseball bat and smashed one of the legs off. Red Sun then flew forward, reeled his fist back and then threw out a solid punch that smashed straight through the chest of the suit and to the other side. Red Sun grabbed some of the wires and power cords and then ripped it out. The suit began to spark and falter before it fell down, completely out of commission. The police arrived on the scene as well as the media as they saw Superman and Red Sun defeat the robot. Superman walked up to the cockpit, ripped the metal off and grabbed Corbin by the shirt. "Want to go a few rounds without the suit?" Superman said as Corbin shook his head no. "Good." The remains of the suit, Corbin and his mercenaries were taken into custody by the police. Corbin and his mercenaries had warrants from countries all over the world, so they would be in protective custody at Strikers Island until the US government and European governments decided who would prosecute them for their laundry list of crimes. The remains of the suit were taken by the US government to be used for the trial. This fight and capture made an awesome news day, and the Daily Planet managed to sell out papers the next day. The only person who wasn't happy was Lex Luthor. He was in his private office in LexCorp Tower in a meeting with the broker for the Regent of Casnia over the failed transaction for the war suit. The broker showed an online copy of the Daily Planet that read Superman and Red Sun capture terrorists, with a picture of Red Sun and Superman on the cover, written by Chloe Sullivan and pictures by James Olsen. As you can see, since the agreed-upon merchandise never left Metropolis, my client the Regent respectfully requests an full and prompt refund. The broker said as Lex just stared at him. "We had an understanding. All I had to do was arrange for the Regent's men to take possession, and they did. And now because of the aliens' interference, you expect me to eat $1 billion. Lex shouted as he slammed his hand on his desk. The broker looked behind Lex and grabbed his briefcase. I think you have more pressing concerns at the moment. Good day. The broker said as he got up and left. Luther turned around to see Superman and Red Sun floating outside his window view of Metropolis. Both were glaring at him. Luther pressed a button on his desk and the windows opened up. I'm afraid we already have a window washer. Lex said as they didn't say anything. Oh, the silent treatment. Well, I don't know what you thought you heard out there, but I know what you can prove and it's nothing. Luther got out of his seat and walked forward. You see, aliens. I own Metropolis. My technology built it, my will keeps it going, and 2/3 of its people work for me whether they know it or not. Even you must admit, it's a model of efficiency. And yet, I've often thought, why limit myself to just one city? Beings with your abilities could prove very useful to me on a, shall we say, global scale. Why don't you float on it and we'll discuss it? Luther said as Superman and Red Sun didn't move. Luther began to get angry that they wouldn't answer him, so he grabbed his metal paperweight. Say something. Luther shouted as he threw the paperweight at them, but Red Sun grabbed it with one hand and crushed it into pebbles. The day we work with a sociopathic, ego-driven madman is the day the world stops turning. Red Sun said as Luther glared at them. I control everything in this town, aliens. Your cooperation is not really necessary. The offer was merely a courtesy. Luther said as Superman and Red Sun glared at them. We'll never work for you, Luther. Superman said. That's got to hurt your huge ego, Luther. You may control this city, but you never will control us. We'll be keeping an eye on you. Red Sun said as he and Superman flew away while Luther shouted and cursed at them. Then you'll be destroyed. Luther said as he glared at them. Line break XXXXX. Naruto returned to Starling City Sunday night after his and Clark's confrontation with Luther and saying goodbye to Chloe, Lois and Jimmy. Chloe said she would continue looking into the craters and the strings of death and destruction that follow and hopefully come up with something. Naruto returned to Starling City to quickly finish the paperwork for the next day and decided to call Laurel and ask her to lunch tomorrow. The work week continued normal, with Naruto going to work during the day and occasionally have lunch dates with Laurel or dinner dates at night. When Naruto didn't have dinner plans with Laurel, he did patrols of Starling or the world. Some of his most recent global exploits included the saving of garment worker from a factory fire in Mexico, which he also put out, an earthquake in China, and the rescue of a cargo ship near the North Atlantic. He even stopped near the Middle East and stopped an ambush against a U.S. Marine unit near the desert of Iran and saved a Israeli patrol unit from a firefight, saving over 40 American and Israeli lives and stopping the terrorists. That and a bunch of other global saves and incidents took place within a week, and it gave the media outlets and world leaders a lot of ammunition to use to discuss Superman and Red Sun. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto had been to Metropolis, and his and Superman's fight with Corbin combined with all the global incidents sparked a lot of newscasts and media coverage over Superman and Red Sun's authority to act and if they should. It was Tuesday and Naruto was at his job, having just finished some paperwork. He got up to deliver the paperwork to HR and go see Laurel for their lunch date when he saw his coworkers huddled around one of the TVs, watching some of the news coverage and discussions about Superman and Red Sun. We, as a population on this planet, have been looking for a savior. 90% of people believe in a higher power, every religion believes in some kind of messianic figure. And when this savior character actually comes to Earth, we want to make him abide by our rules. We have to understand that this is a paradigm shift. We need to start thinking beyond politics. Are there any moral constraints on these aliens? We have international law. On this Earth, every act is a political act. Human beings have a horrible track record of following great people with power down paths that led to horrible human atrocities. We have always created icons in our own image. What we've done is project ourselves onto them. The fact is that maybe they're not some kind of devil or Jesus characters, but maybe they're just people trying to do the right thing. We're talking about a being whose very existence challenges our own sense of priority in the universe. If you go back to Copernicus, where he restored the sun as the center of the known universe, displacing Earth, and then you get to Darwinian evolution. And you find out that we're not special on this Earth. We're just one among other lifeforms. And now we learn that we're not even special in the entire universe because of beings like Superman and Red Sun. There they are, aliens among us. We're not alone. Naruto watched as the news changed to an interview with Senator June Finch from Kentucky, who's been one of the most vocal people to speak out against Superman and Red Sun from engaging in their high-level acts and judgment. Is it really surprising that the most powerful men in the world should be a figure of controversy? To have these individuals engaging in state-level events should give us all pause. We have levels of action of checks and balances so that the best act of any kind of situation can be enacted, and here are these men who disregard those rules entirely. Are you comfortable saying to a grieving parent, Superman could have saved your child? But on principle, we did not want him to act. I'm not saying they shouldn't act. I'm saying that they shouldn't act unilaterally. What are we talking about here then? Must there be men like this? There shouldn't, but there are. Click. Naruto's coworkers turned to see that Naruto had turned off the TV with the remote. Come on, Naruto. What? Don't like the news? One of them asked. I like the news, but I know you guys are behind on your work. Come on. Naruto said as they got back to work, and Naruto looked at the TV one more time before he left. Naruto walked out of his building to go meet up with Laurel for lunch. Speaking of Laurel, she was at her desk working on some of the files for the Joshua Brown trial the Ada was heading tomorrow. She was just about finished and put the files together when she saw her dad walk in. Hey, sweetie. Lance said as she got up and kissed him on the cheek, and he kissed back. Hey, Dad. What brings you down here? Did you need something? Laurel asked. No. Well, I just finished a patrol and I was in the neighborhood, so I thought we could grab lunch. Lance said as Laurel smiled as she logged off her computer and grabbed her purse and jacket. Oh, Dad. I'd love to, but I actually already have lunch plans. Laurel said as Lance smiled. Really? With who? Some coworkers. Lance asked. Actually, for your information, it's a lunch date. Laurel said. Really? Lance asked as Laurel put her jacket on. Hey, Laurel. Lance heard and turned to see a tall, handsome, spiky blonde man walk up to them. Oh, sorry. Am I interrupting something? No, it's fine. I'm ready. Dad, this is Naruto Kent. Naruto, this is my father, Quentin Lance. Laurel said as Lance smiled and Naruto smiled back. Quentin, nice to meet you. Lance said as he shook Naruto's hand, who firmly shook back. The pleasure's mine, Officer Lance. Laurel's told me a lot about you. Naruto said as Lance looked at Laurel. Really? Because she's never mentioned you. Lance said. That's because we've only been dating for 2 weeks. Laurel said as Naruto and Lance chuckled. I don't think I've seen you around Starling before. Lance said. I'm new, actually. I moved to Starling about a month ago for work. That's how I actually met Laurel. Naruto said as Lance smiled. Really? Lance asked. Yeah, the publishing company I worked for needed paperwork and Laurel helped me out. Naruto said as Laurel grabbed her things. Okay, I'm ready. I'll see you later, Dad. Laurel said as she kissed him goodbye. It was a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Lance. Naruto said as he shook his hand goodbye. Yeah, Lance said as Laurel and Naruto left for their lunch date. They went to Torres for sushi and talked about their days, and Laurel said that she was invited to a campaign party that was being hosted by Oliver Queen. It was for Alderman Blood, who was running for mayor and was being held at Verdant. Blood invited Laurel and she wanted to know if Naruto wanted to come, and he said yes. As someone who would be living in Starling for a while, it would be a good idea to get to know more people and someone who might be mayor. Naruto said he would pick up Laurel from work when he got off. Naruto just had to finish off some more paperwork and coordinate some new book deals going out, but after that he went to pick up Laurel. Laurel was at her desk, finishing up her work for the day, when Ada Donner walked over. Hey, summon me here for a drink. You look dressed for it. Donner said. No, actually. I called you here to tell you that I'm heading out early. I have a date. Laurel said as Donner nodded. Oh, lucky. So, what are you working on? Donner asked. Just finished up the paperwork for the Joshua Burns trial. Now, just some stuff for my own curiosity. Laurel said as she smiled and grabbed her jacket. Laurel, ready? Donner heard as he turned to see someone walk up. Yeah. Naruto, this is Ada Adam Donner. Adam, this is Naruto Kent. Laurel said as Naruto shook Adam's hand. Nice to meet you. Naruto said as Adam nodded. Likewise. So, where are you guys heading? Donner asked. The campaign rally for Sebastian Blood. I'll see you tomorrow, Adam. Laurel said as she and Naruto left. Naruto and Laurel took a cab to Verdant, where Oliver Queen was hosting the campaign party for Sebastian Blood. Naruto and Laurel mingled with the crowd for a bit, with Laurel introducing Naruto to some people she knew. Then Oliver Queen stood up on the platform to address everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. For the past year, our fair city has undergone a crucible. A good friend once told me that a crucible shows the strength and resolve any one person can have to overcome it. Our city may have gone through a lot, but we have shown our strength. And Sebastian Blood has pulled us together to show that we are stronger together. He has done so much for our city and he can do more. He is the man we need to see in the mayor's office. So, please, join me in our efforts to send Starling's favorite son there. To Sebastian Blood, Sebastian for Starling. Oliver said as everyone clapped. He then stepped down as Sebastian stepped forward. Thank you, Oliver. And not just for your support, but also for your friendship. Sebastian said as Oliver nodded. And thank all of you for coming. You know, when Oliver calls me a son of Starling City, it feels like the literal truth. I was a street orphan, and this city raised me as one of its own. I am the man that I am today because of my Starling City family. So, it's time that I start to give back. So, thank you all for your support. Everyone clapped and applauded as Sebastian walked off the podium and shook the hands of people and thanked them for coming. Laurel smiled as Sebastian walked over to her and hugged her as she hugged back. Laurel, glad you could make it. Sebastian said. Glad I got the invite. That was a good speech. Laurel said. I just spoke from the heart. Sebastian said as Naruto walked over with 2 glasses of champagne. Oh, who's your friend? Oh, Sebastian, this is Naruto Kent. Naruto, this is Sebastian Blood. Laurel said as Naruto smiled and shook Sebastian's hand. It's nice to meet. Sebastian said as Naruto smiled. The pleasure's mine. That was a great speech. Naruto said as Sebastian nodded. Thank you. I plan to do my best for this city and I hope I can count on your vote. Sebastian said as Naruto nodded. Well, I may have just gotten to this city but I can say that you have it. Naruto said as Sebastian smiled. Oliver took a sip of champagne as he watched Sebastian talking to Laurel and some guy she was with. Nice speech, Ollie. Who knew you cared so much about politics? Thea asked. Well, I care about the city, and Sebastian is a friend. Oliver said as Thea nodded. He's got to be a good friend. Thea said as Oliver chuckled. Cute. So, how's Roy? Oliver asked. Handsome, brooding, usual. Why is my boyfriend such a topic of interest? Thea asked. Well, Thea, his idol put an arrow in him, and I just wanted to make sure there weren't any lingering issues. Oliver said as Thea realized something. Oh, my god. Now that I think about it, you know, he did something completely out of character this morning. Thea said. What? Oliver asked. He showed up for work on time. Thea joked as Oliver chuckled. Cute. Oliver replied as their mother came over. Thea, oh, it's just wonderful. Moira said. Proud to do my civic duty. Thea said. No, I'm the one who's proud. You've taken Oliver's hobby and turned it into a successful business. Moira said. Hobby? Oliver asked as Moira and Thea chuckled. Oh, sweetheart. Moira said as she hugged them. Moira then left to go talk to a friend as Thea noticed the guy Laurel was with. Hey, Ollie. How are things with you and Laurel? Thea asked. Fine, why? Oliver asked. Nothing, I just hope you're not the jealous type. Because Laurel's friend there seems to be very close. Thea said as Oliver looked at Laurel and the tall, blonde guy she was with. The two seemed very comfortable together and Oliver saw that Laurel seemed happy again, like she used to be with Tommy. He even saw the guy kiss Laurel on the head. Thea thought it was cute. Laurel and I are just friends, Thea. Oliver replied. Oh, good. Because he is yummy. Thea said as Oliver looked at her. What? He is gorgeous. Tall and handsome. Okay, I don't need to hear any more. Oliver said as Thea chuckled and left to go check how things were going. Sebastian then walked over to thank Oliver. Oliver, thank you so much for your kind words. Sebastian said as he shook Oliver's hand. Oliver smiled and shook back. I'm just speaking the truth. Oliver said as Sebastian smiled. Oh, forgive me, a friend just waked in. Sebastian said as he left to go greet a friend. Oliver saw Laurel and her friend walk over after Laurel saw that Oliver had seen her. Oliver, hi. Laurel said as she and Oliver hugged. Glad you could come. Oliver said as Laurel smiled. Sebastian invited us. Laurel said. Us. Oliver asked as Laurel nodded. Oliver, this is Naruto Kent. Naruto, this is Oliver Queen. Laurel said as Naruto shook Oliver's hand. Nice to meet you. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Nice to meet you, too. Oliver said as he looked at Naruto. Wow, you're taller in person. Naruto said as Oliver chuckled. Excuse me? Oliver asked as Laurel chuckled. Sorry, it's just that my friend, Chloe, used to talk about you a lot in college. She kind of had a massive crush on you when you kept making the tabloids. Naruto joked as Laurel and Oliver chuckled. Well, I'm proud to say that those days are behind me. Oliver said. I heard. Congratulations on being CEO. Must have been big shoes to fill. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. It's not as hard as you would think. Plus, I have some good friends that help me. Oliver said. So, what do you do? Well, I worked for the Random House Publishing Company. I was recently relocated to Starling City. It's how I actually met Laurel. Naruto said as Oliver smiled. Naruto, do you think you could get me another glass of champagne? Laurel asked. Sure thing. I'll let you two catch up. Naruto said as he left. Laurel and Oliver smiled as they saw Naruto walk to the bar. He's nice. How long have you two been a thing? Oliver asked. 2 weeks. Although, I'm not sure what to call us yet. Laurel said. Oh. What's holding you back? Oliver asked. Just, how my last 2 relationships ended. I'm not sure how this would end up. Laurel said as Oliver smiled. Well, I can't speak for you, but I think that you'll never know until you try. Oliver said as he could tell there was something else holding her back. Is there something else? Naruto and I have been getting to know each other for 2 weeks now and he's been really open with me. But sometimes, I feel like I don't know the real Naruto. He reminds me a little of you that way. Laurel said as Oliver chuckled. Well, I think that if you want this to work, then you should do what we never did. Oliver said. And what's that? Laurel asked. Talk to him. If Naruto wants this work, and from what I saw he does, then talking to him is the best thing to do. Oliver said as Laurel smiled. Thanks, Oliver. Laurel said. All I want for you is to be happy. It's what I've always wanted. Oliver said as he pats her on the shoulder. And if he hurts you, I'll kill him. Laurel looked at Oliver as he walked away. She turned around to see Naruto walk to her with 2 glasses of champagne. Naruto and Laurel enjoyed the night and mingled with some other people there when Naruto's super hearing picked up an explosion in the distance. 5 seconds later, everyone in the club felt the rumble as they wondered what the hell happened. What is an earthquake or a bomb? Some police officers arrived to tell them what happened, to protect Alderman Blood and to instruct everyone to be safe. Naruto, we should. Laurel turned to Naruto and saw he was gone. She looked around to see where he was and saw his champagne glass on top of a napkin with some writing on it. She grabbed it and it read, have to go check something out, friend called. It's urgent, call you later, Naruto. Naruto had snuck out to the back of the club, ran down an alley and ripped open his shirt to reveal his suit underneath. He took off his normal clothes, activated the disguise changer for his face and hair and flew into the air to downtown where one of the main banks of Starling City was on fire. Naruto used his X-ray vision and examined the building. None of the structural supports were compromised. The bomb had been placed so that the main floors where the money and bank information was held. The police and fire department showed up and began taking care of the fires, so Naruto kept looking to see if there was anyone trapped in the building. He looked through the 9th floor and saw 2 people being escorted out of the building by a guy wearing a hood and carrying a bow. So that's the arrow. Red Sun said as he saw that there was another person trapped on the 10th floor, so he flew to the 10th floor, smashed through a broken window and stopped over the female banker who was trapped under a table. He stopped over her to prevent a falling piece of the roof to fall on her. It's okay, I got you. Red Sun said as he knelt and moved the table off her. He then scooped her up into her arms and flew out of the building as the roof came down. Red Sun flew out of the building and floated down to the ground as the paramedics came up to the buildings with a stretcher. Red Sun put the woman down on the stretcher as the paramedics looked her over. Thank you. The woman said as Red Sun smiled. Just doing my job. Red Sun said with a smile as he flew up into the air and looked at the burning building. He then clapped his hands together with enough force to create a huge gust of wind that put out the fire. Red Sun looked at the crowd before flying away. On the rooftop of the building across from the bomb explosion, Oliver Queen or the Arrow looked at Red Sun as he flew away. Line break XXXXX. The next morning, the police were on high alert after the bombing and were doing their best to try and track down the person responsible. There was a lead in the morning as a 300-page manifesto of anti-government hate was published by the bomber. His identity was still unknown. At Queen Consolidated, Oliver Queen entered his office after a long night on patrol. He walked in as Diggle finished reading the manifesto that was published. You okay? Long night? Diggle asked. Yeah. News report said the bomber didn't steal any money. Oliver said. I think this guy just wants to make a statement. That went online an hour ago. Diggle said as he handed Oliver his tablet. His manifesto. 300 pages of anti-government hate. You think this psych is any way connected to our psycho in the skull mask? Exhales, this guy has a completely separate agenda. He's a lone wolf, but we need to find before he finds his next target. Oliver said as Diggle nodded. I'd start with the bomb. Everyone's unique. Maybe we can get some kind of signature on the guy. But the bomb residue is with SCPD. Diggle said. Fortunately we have an in with one of the officers at the department. They heard as they saw Felicity walk in with a suitcase. I thought you were staying in Central City for a few more days. Oliver said. I got a news alert about the bombing, caught the first train out this morning. Felicity said. Good. We need you here. How's Barry? Oliver asked. Ah, he's still sleeping. I prefer sleeping to coma, because coma sounds not fun. I'll reach out to Detective Lance. Felicity said as Oliver nodded. Across town, Naruto was in his office finishing some paperwork and watching the news about the recent bombing. After saving that woman and putting out the fire, he called Laurel and made up a lie saying that a work friend he knew was in that building and he left to go check on him. Luckily, his friend was fine. Naruto spent a good 15 minutes after that apologizing, but Laurel told him it was okay. Naruto finished the last of his paperwork as he saw the police press conference saying that no one was killed but the bomber's identity was still unknown and that people should be careful. Naruto looked at his computer as he watched the press conference and decided to try and stop this guy before he killed anyone. So, Naruto called the best person to help him figure this out. Hey, Naruto. Chloe answered. Hey, Chloe. How's it going? Naruto asked. Oh, not bad. Although, I'm currently working with Lois on her intergang piece. Apparently, Bruno Mannheim's been getting some new kinds of weapons. Weapons that aren't standard military. Chloe said as Naruto raised an eyebrow. You think Luther's been supplying intergang with weapons in exchange for taking out Clark? Naruto asked. Maybe. Luther's been quiet. Nothing too extreme since the war suit incident, but I heard he's been pouring more funding into his tech, science and biotech divisions. Probably to figure out how to kill you and Clark. Chloe said as Naruto took a deep breath. Well, hopefully he doesn't get that far. I mean, the only thing that could kill us is kryptonite and there can't be that much left on the planet. Naruto said. I'll keep my contacts on Luther. His ego is as large as his fortune and he won't stand to have two people who can surpass him. Chloe said. Thanks, Chloe. There's another reason I called you. I need your help. Did you hear about the bombing here in Starling City? Naruto asked. Yeah, Perry had a small section of the global incidents page for it. What happened? Chloe asked. Well, I'm pretty sure it was a terrorist bombing by an anti-government nutcase. Here, I'm sending you the link. Naruto said as sent it via email. The bomber uploaded that manifesto today. Do you think you could work your computer magic and find out who he is? If that manifesto was any indicator, then he won't stop at one. Well, you called the right person. I'll work my magic and call you when I get a lead. Chloe said. You're the best, Chloe. Don't ever forget that. Naruto said. I know. Chloe said as she hung up. Naruto put his phone down as he saw Laurel walk in with a bag. Hey. Did we have a lunch today? Naruto asked. No. I was in the neighborhood, figured I'd stop by with some. Laurel said as she held up a bag of tora sushi. And my favorite. Awesome. Come in. Naruto said as Laurel walked in and sat down at his desk and took out the sushi. Nice office. Laurel said. Yeah, the benefits of working for the company for so long. It has its charm, but I don't spend too much time in here. To be honest, I'm busy going to different departments for work. Naruto said as Laurel sat down. Laurel, again I'm sorry for leaving so suddenly last night. It couldn't be helped. Not, it's fine. Is your friend okay? Laurel asked. Yeah, she's fine. Naruto said. Oh, your friend is a she? Laurel asked. Yeah, she works in the finance department. That's why she was at the bank last night. Don't worry, she's just a friend. Naruto said as Laurel nodded, but Naruto could tell that she had something on her mind. Is there something else? Well, Laurel said as she struggled to find the words. Naruto stood up and walked in front of her. Laurel, if there's something wrong or if you have a question, just ask. Naruto said as Laurel took a breath. Oliver and I weren't just friends. We actually were a thing a while ago. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. I know. I could tell last night that you two had something. Naruto said. Don't worry, we're over. But it was complicated to say the least. Laurel said as she took a breath to steady herself so Naruto held her hand. When Oliver got on the boat, I thought that we were planning a future together, but it turns out that he was looking for a way out. He had been seeing my sister, Sarah, and she was on the boat when it went down. Oh my god. That couldn't have been easy. Naruto said. That's an understatement. I was so angry for so long at what happened that I couldn't grieve, and when Oliver came back it brought it all back. I managed to move past that and began dating someone who I saw a future with, but it was just as complicated. His name was Tommy Merlin, and he was Oliver's best friend. Laurel said as she took a deep breath. Before the earthquake that destroyed the Glades, Tommy broke up with me because he thought that I was still in love with Oliver. And in that moment of weakness, I did something I shouldn't have. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. I betrayed him. Tommy died in the earthquake and I've felt guilty about that ever since. It's okay, Laurel. Naruto said as he soothed her. So, I wanted to tell you why I've been going so slow with our relationship. And why I haven't been as open as you would probably like to push our relationship forward. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. That's a lot to take in. You've been through so much, more than most people should have to go through in one life. Naruto said. Yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest before we go any further. Laurel said. And I'm glad that you felt comfortable enough with me to share that. And now I want you to know that I don't plan on giving up on this relationship. Since you were honest with me, I need to return the favor. Naruto said as he sat down next to her. On our first dinner, I told you that I was adopted, but you never pushed it, so I figured that since you told me about your past, I should tell you about mine. I was adopted when I was 4 by my foster parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Naruto said. What happened to your birth parents? Laurel asked. They died, a year after I was born. Naruto said. Oh, I'm sorry. Laurel said as Naruto nodded. It's fine. To be honest, the first few years of my life before my brother and I were adopted, I was completely unaware of what had happened. When I was adopted, I thought that they were my birth parents, and it wasn't until I got older that they told me. Naruto said. You mentioned your brother, Clark. Laurel asked. We're not related by blood, but we're brothers. We grew up together and were a family. It didn't matter to my parents that we weren't their biological children, they loved us as if we were. I never knew anything about my birth parents until high school. Naruto said. What happened? Laurel asked. During high school, my brother and I got in contact with Dr. Virgil Swan. Naruto said. The famous astrologist and billionaire. Laurel asked. Yes. He got in contact with us because he knew our parents. It turns out that my parents and Clark's were very close, practically family. They worked with Dr. Swan and he told us about them. Naruto said. What happened? Laurel asked. There was an accident with an experiment they were doing. They died trying to save people. They were heroes. Naruto said as he took a breath. And that was pretty much my life before college. Going to school, looking after Clark, and finding out who my birth parents were. To be honest, I was scared about finding out who I really was. I had grown up for so long believing in certain things about yourself and who you thought your parents were. When you're faced with the chance to learn the truth, you hesitate. And when you decided to find out the truth, how did you feel afterward? Laurel asked. A mix between glad and nervous because I knew that my life wasn't going to be the same afterward. Naruto said as Laurel looked at him. Do you have any people in your life that knew your parents? Laurel asked as Naruto shook his head no. No one that knew them personally. Although, I did learn that Clark had a biological cousin, Kara. She's been a new addition to the family. We keep in contact, but she's doing great. Naruto said. So how are your parents? Laurel asked. My mom is fine. She's back in Smallville on the farm. My dad passed away a few years ago. Naruto said. Oh, I'm sorry. Laurel said. How did he pass? Heart attack. Naruto said as he took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Naruto. That couldn't have been easy to share. Laurel said. It's fine. You shared a lot with me and I wanted to do the same. And you can consider that my answer as to where our relationship is going. I'm more than happy to see where this will go. Naruto said as he kissed Laurel and she kissed back. Line break XXXXX. The day turned to night as the people of Starling City went home or went out. Naruto went back to his apartment to eat before he went out in his suit for a patrol. He wasn't the only hero who was on patrol, Oliver Queen was out as well. He called Officer Lance earlier and told him to meet him on top of the SCPD rooftop with a sample of the bomb residue so he could have Felicity track down the bomber before he strikes again. Officer Lance walked onto the roof and waited until the arrow showed up. He took a breath when he heard an electronic beep. He turned around and saw the arrow. You know, most cops meet their informants in the back of a cruiser or a coffee shop. Lance said when he noticed something. What's with the mask? A gift from a friend. The arrow said. You got friends? Lance asked. Did you bring me what I asked for, detective? The arrow asked as Lance took out a small pouch of powder residue from his pocket. That's a sample of everything that CSU collected from the blast. There's melted glass, multiple explosive fragments, and trace residue, and it looks like nitroglycerin. Which means that we're dealing with more than just a basement nut job. Lance said. Someone with training. The arrow said as Lance nodded. Thank you, detective. I need a favor, too. Lance said as the arrow nodded. The son of a bitch, who killed my men, my partner. He's dead. The arrow said. But whoever tipped him off, told him we were coming, he's doing just fine. Lance said. What do you need? The arrow asked. Cell phone records for every cop in my precinct. Lance said. You think there's a leak in the department? The arrow asked. I think those phone records are the only way to know for sure, and your blonde friend is pretty good with computers. Lance said. I'll ask her. BOOM. The arrow was cut off when another bomb explosion a few blocks away went off, destroying the top floors of a building. Lance and the arrow saw the huge puff of fire and smoke as the building burned. DC 52 to Central, 10 to 80, downtown. Lance shouted as he ran back in the building. He's hit again. The arrow said as he looked at the burning building. Starling City Municipal Building. Diggle said over the comm system. Fire and police are mobilizing now, but I'm not sure if they'll make it there in time. Felicity said when the arrow heard a loud boom. He turned and saw a figure come in from the horizon and flew towards the burning building. He knew it was Red Sun. It's taken care of. I need a location on the bomber. The arrow said. I'll give you one better. I'm checking the surrounding cell towers. There was a GSM spike of 3,800 MHz 2 seconds before the blast. That frequency's way outside the approved frequency for U.S. carriers. Felicity said as she tried to narrow that down. Signal's moving. I think he's mobile. Give me an intersection. The arrow said as he ran to his bike. He drove through the city, avoiding and dodging cars as he made his way to the last location of the bomber. He made his way down the street, looking at all the cars to find the bomber as Felicity managed to narrow his signal position. I got him, he's straight ahead 400 meters. Felicity said as the arrow looked around and saw a black van up ahead with no plates. I see him. The arrow said as he sped up. The bomber was stopped at the red light of an intersection, not worried about the police finding him. He heard a motorcycle closing in, so he looked at his side mirror and saw the Starling City vigilante closing in. He slammed on the accelerator and drove through the red light, causing the driving cars to swerve to a stop to avoid an accident. The arrow followed him through the red light and sped up. The bomber turned down one street and swerved around the narrow two-way street as the arrow kept with him. The bomber reached into his bag, pulled out a grenade, pulled the pin and tossed it out the window. The arrow saw the grenade roll down the left side of the street, so she quickly jumped off his seat and hung off the right side of his bike to avoid his blast. Once he got clear of the grenade, he sped up to catch up with the bomber. The bomber tossed another grenade out of the window and it exploded in a large plume of smoke, obscuring the arrow's vision. He drove through the smoke and sped through the street but couldn't see the bomber's van, just other cars on the road. Felicity, I lost him. The arrow said. Wait, what? Felicity said as she lost the signal on her computer. Me too. Hold on. She quickly got to work to reacquire his signal and locate him. Got him. Bank left on Girard Street. You're almost right on top of him. The arrow followed her directions and turned down Girard Street but quickly swerved to a stop to avoid hitting a commuter bus. It's not him, Felicity. You picked up the wrong signal. The arrow said. What? I thought, he must have scrambled the signal. Felicity said. It doesn't matter. He's gone. The arrow said as he made his way back to the bunker. Oliver walked into the bunker with his hood down and walked over to Felicity. What happened? Oliver asked. He's using cellular technology to detonate his bombs. Clearly, his expertise extends to obscuring that signal. Felicity said. Felicity, your expertise are supposed to trump his. Oliver said in an angry tone and he put his bow away. Excuse me. If you have something to say to me, Oliver, say it. Felicity said. People are dying. So, I would like you to pull your head out of Central City and get back in the game. Oliver told her. Sure, right after you get yours out of your ass. Felicity replied. Excuse me. Oliver shot back. All right. Maybe we should just take a breath here. Diggle said, trying to keep the peace. No, wait. I want to know what exactly was that crack about Central City meant to imply. Felicity asked. When the first bomb went off, you weren't here. And when the second bomb went off, you sent me the wrong way. Oliver said. After you didn't catch him in the first place. Felicity replied. Don't blame me because you didn't have it tonight. Oliver told her as Felicity just looked at him. I need some air. Felicity said as she left and Diggle walked up to Oliver. At the risk of me getting my head knocked off, playing the blame game's not going to help us catch this son of a bitch. Diggle said. Neither is doing things halfway. Oliver replied. Is that what you think's going on here, Oliver? You think she was distracted? She wasn't giving it her all. Diggle asked. She almost ran me into a bus, Diggle. What do you think? Oliver asked. I think you didn't have a problem with Felicity's performance until she met Barry Allen. Diggle said as Oliver just looked at him. Line break XXXXX. The next day, the entire city and police force were high alert after the bombing of the Starling City Municipal Building. Even though it was late, there were still people in the building and unfortunately one janitor was killed in the blast before Red Sun could get there. He did manage to put out the fire and save the other people in the building but he wasn't able to save everyone. Jonathan told that to Naruto and Clark when they began to use their powers to save people in high school. Despite their powers, they couldn't save everyone. It still didn't make Naruto feel better about not getting there in time. Naruto kept on going, business as usual until Chloe could get a lead on the bomber. Then he could act. Even though Naruto had to wait around for Chloe's lead, he was happy that he and Laurel were moving forward in their relationship. He made himself a promise that if he and Laurel were really serious, then he would tell Laurel the truth about him when he felt it was time. Laurel was glad that she and Naruto were pushing forward with their relationship. She just hoped that this relationship wouldn't end like her last two. She was on her way to the SCPD because Donner wanted her to coordinate with them because they were getting pressure to find the bomber. She walked in and saw her dad talking to another officer. Her father saw her and walked over. Hey, Lance said. Pretty crazy. Laurel said. Yeah, you doing all right? Lance asked. I'm fine. My boss sent me over because he wants the DA's office coordinating with the hunt for the bomber. Laurel said as Lance nodded. You being at the DA's officer now, it's almost like you joined the family business. Lance said as they walked over to his desk. To be honest, we haven't gotten that far in the investigation but I'll inform Lieutenant Pike and get things set. But for the time being, you might want to stay at home until we find this guy. Well, unfortunately I can't just stay at home and do nothing. Laurel said as Lance chuckled. So, how is Narada? Lance asked as Laurel chuckled. Naruto, Dad. Laurel corrected him. Right, sorry. Not exactly an easy name. Lance said. It's fine. And we're actually doing great. We're having lunch later. Laurel said as Lance smiled. Good. He's a good kid. Lance said as Laurel looked at him. He is. So, don't worry, he's not Oliver or Tommy. You don't need to go full cop on him. Laurel said. Well, I don't think there will be anything to stop me from going full cop, but like a good father and cop, I've already looked into your new boyfriend. Lance said as he grabbed some files and walked over to the desk sergeant to deliver them with Laurel right behind him. Dad, we've only been dating for 3 weeks. Laurel said as Lance dropped off the file. And like a good father, I want to get to know the guy. But like a good cop, I had to do my research. Lance said as Laurel scoffed. They walked back to his desk and Lance grabbed the file that had the information on Naruto. And? Laurel asked, a little curious to see if what her father found was the same as what Naruto told her. He's a good kid. Adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent, brother to Clark Kent, raised in Smallville, Kansas. His childhood exploits were impressive. I don't know many 11-year-olds that can paint bomb City Hall or joyride a pickup with the police chasing them. Lance said. Naruto went through a prankster phase. He told me about that. Laurel said. And he cleaned up his act. Straight kid, honor roll, worked for the school newspaper, won the school literacy award all 4 years, college after that and then a job. Not so much as a parking ticket. Although, there were some mentions of him and his brother in several dozen police reports. Lance said. About what? Laurel asked. It seems that your boyfriend was a bit of a hero. A bunch of police reports have him as the first person on the scene or managed to stop the criminal. Looks like the kid did the cop's job for them for a while. Lance said as Laurel took the file and looked at it. Interesting. Naruto never mentioned that. Laurel said. Well, besides that he's clean. And he seems like a good guy and you deserve a good guy. I think I'll want to meet him again before I pass judgment, but he's a win for you, Laurel. Lance said as Laurel smirked. Really, I never thought I'd see the day when you were okay with a guy the first was dating. Laurel said. Well, maybe I'm getting old, but I like that after the bad boys and fraternity heads that you're going out with someone normal. I could tell that he cares about you. Now that doesn't mean I'm completely okay with the idea of you and a guy. If I could have it my way, no guys forever, but I can't. Lance said as Laurel smiled. Thanks, Dad. It means a lot to me that you're okay with this. And I promise to be careful. Laurel said as Lance smiled. Naruto and Laurel went out to lunch and went back to work afterward. Laurel had some files she needed to prep for a trial, so she would be busy tonight. Naruto finished his work and then went out on patrol. He flew above Starling City and broke up a weapons deal that was going on and left them tied up for the police. He was floating above the Queen Consolidated building as he watched the new coverage on his phone. It was showing Alderman Blood's Unity rally where he was publicly give a speech about unity and invited the rest of Starling to join him. It was practically a giant target on the alderman's head for the bomber. Naruto's phone then rang and he saw it was Chloe. He just hoped that she managed to track down the bomber. Hey, Chloe. Tell me you got good news. Naruto said. Of course. Did you expect any less? The URL the manifest was sent through was a network of firewalls and encryptions, but I managed to get through enough of them to find out where it came from. The URL matches the web ID from an anti-government militia group called the Movement. After a little more work, I found that one member whose web ID matched that of the URL you sent. The guy goes by the codename Shrapnel and his IP is located at a souvenir shop in Starling. Chloe said as Naruto smiled. I shouldn't have expected any less. Send me the address. This bomber is done. Naruto said. Already on its way. Be careful. Chloe said. I think I'll be fine against a bomber. Naruto said. Sorry, force of habit. But seriously, be careful. This guy's nuts. Chloe said. Right. Thanks, Chloe. Naruto said as he got the address and flew to the souvenir shop. He flew above the city, using his enhanced vision to locate the souvenir shop. He managed to locate the sign, so he flew down and landed on the street. He then walked into the store, and as soon as he walked in and closed the door, he saw a green arrow knocked on a compound bow with the arrow aiming right at Naruto's head. What are you doing here? The arrow said to him. Probably the same thing you are. Red Sun said as he stepped forward, but when he did, he heard an electronic click. Then 8 red sensor beams shot out from the wall and crisscrossed with each other, keeping the arrow and Red Sun stuck in their spots. If they moved, they would trip the red beams. Boom. You're dead. Or will be if you take one more step or move a single muscle. And then you'll miss the show. Candidate Blood's Unity Rally. Shrapnel said over a radio as the TV in the store turned on to show camera feed of the rally. Already packed with 50 pounds of RDX high explosives. Not unlike what's packed inside the drywall of my store. This city thinks Sebastian Blood can keep them safe. Tonight, they learn that the only thing politicians care about protecting is their jobs. Well, this complicates things. Red Sun said he x-rayed the room to get a better layout of the explosives. Felicity. Arrow said as she responded. No. He said he rigged the plaza with an explosive device. Oliver, it's crazy town there. That bomb could be anywhere. Felicity said. I can narrow that down. Get me Diggle. Arrow said as Felicity connected him. Shrapnel said he ringed the perimeter with RDX. You heading to the plaza too? Felicity asked. Not yet. I've got an unexpected guest with me. Arrow said. Guess. Felicity asked. Red Sun, the Kryptonian. The Arrow said as Felicity went wide-eyed. He's there. What's he doing there? Felicity asked. I'd be happy to answer that question later, but I think we should focus on our predicament. Red Sun said as Felicity was surprised he could hear her and began looking around the bunker for bugs. Do you have a plan for this? The Arrow asked. Normally it wouldn't matter since explosives can't hurt me, but the explosion would take out several blocks. Red Sun as he found the main switchboard from where the explosives and the electronic detonators were drawing their power. He short circuits that, and the bombs wouldn't go off. Hope that hoodie keeps you warm. Red Sun took a deep breath and then blew out a narrow puff of ice air that began to encase the junction box in ice. After about 30 seconds, the entire junction box was encased in a 12-inch thick block of ice. The junction box sparked and electricity shot out before they heard the power shut off and the laser trip wires power down. Naruto used his X-ray vision and saw the explosives were deactivated. We're good. Hope that wasn't too cold for you. Red Sun said. I've had worse. The Arrow said. Good to know. See you later. Red Sun said as he super sped out of the store into the roof where he saw the rest of the RDX explosives that Shrapnel had planted and got them safely away from the city. Oliver, you okay? Felicity asked. I'm fine. Join Dig at the rally. I'm on my way. The Arrow said as he ran to his bike. Dig was at the rally and walking the perimeter to check for explosives. He checked the speakers around the plaza and found one that wasn't working like the others. He opened up the back and found the electronic trigger for the explosive. Dig, I'm on site. Felicity said. I'm over by the east corner. I found the trigger. Dig said as Felicity ran over and saw Dig and the explosive trigger. Oliver said the whole place was ringed with explosives. It's in the sound equipment. And this is the trigger. Shrapnel activated it by cellular transmission. Felicity said. So we don't have to disarm it, just disable it. Dig said. I can do that, I think. I hope. Felicity said as she took out her phone and a pair of wire cutters. Listen, you need to be careful. He probably put in a safeguard. Tampering with it will set off a deadman switch. Dig said. That's a really depressing term. And a little bit sexist. Felicity said as she grabbed some wires. They froze when they heard the firing pin of a gun click. They turned and saw the bomber with a handgun pointed at them and a detonator in his other. Step away. Or we all know how this ends. Shrapnel warned them. Dig ran forward causing Shrapnel to fire a bullet in Dig's shoulder. Dig. Felicity shouted as the sound of the gunshot rang throughout the plaza causing the crowd to scatter and the police to usher Alderman Blood away. The Arrow rode into the plaza on his motorcycle and saw everyone running. He looked and saw Dig and Felicity by the trigger and Shrapnel with a gun and detonator. Shrapnel holstered his gun, pulled out a grenade, pulled the pin and threw it towards the stage in hopes of killing Alderman Blood. The Arrow saw him threw the grenade and quickly shot an arrow and destroyed the grenade while it was in the air. It exploded above the crowd and was high enough that it wouldn't hurt anyone, but the force of the explosion destroyed parts of the lighting rig. Shrapnel saw his grenade explode in the air and saw the Arrow arrive, so he ran with the Arrow going after him. The destroyed lighting rig began to crack and the rig tipped and was going to fall on the plaza and squish anyone underneath it, which happened to be Moira Queen. Roy saw this and ran to cover her as the lighting rig fell down and he braced himself for the impact, but it never came. He opened his eyes and looked to see that the lighting rig stopped inches from hitting him. He turned and saw Red Sun, the man of steel, holding onto the lighting rig with one hand. You're pretty brave, kid. Red Sun said as he moved the lighting rig onto the ground. Roy and Moira ran to Thea as Red Sun saw two people near a speaker box. He super sped over to the box as Dig jumped back in fright and he and Felicity went wide-eyed. You two okay? Dig said as he couldn't find the words to speak at the moment. We're fine. But the trigger is still active. Felicity said as Red Sun X-rayed the plaza and found the 5 speakers that had 10 pounds of RDX explosives each. I got it. Red Sun said as he grabbed the speaker that held the trigger, super sped around the plaza and grabbed the speakers that had the RDX, meshed them together by bending parts of the speakers together and made a giant ball. Red Sun then flew straight into the air, getting as high as he could to get rid of the bomb. He flew 10 miles above the city and then hurled the bombs another 10 miles into the sky. Naruto then fired his heat vision and blew up the RDX, causing a massive explosion, but it was high enough that it didn't do any damage to the city. Red Sun flew down to the city and saw Shrapnel being led away in handcuffs by the police. He used his supervision and saw the Arrow standing on a rooftop overlooking the plaza, and Red Sun could tell that the Arrow was looking straight at him, so he flew down and stopped right in front of him. Glad to see that you let the police arrest him and didn't kill him. Red Sun said as the arrow glared at him. I'm trying a different way, a better way. The arrow replied. Glad to hear it. Although I'm not entirely sure if that makes amends for the bodies you dropped last year. Red Sun said. What are you doing here? Starling City is my territory. The arrow said. Well, the world is mine and for the time being I'm here, so you better get used to me. Besides, I've been helping this city for over a month now and it's been better. Better than you can do in a night. Red Sun said with a smirk. Starling City doesn't need you. The arrow said as Red Sun narrowed his eyes and got a glimpse of the person underneath the hood, Oliver Queen. From my point of view, it does. This city needs help and one man in a hood can only do so much. If you play nice, so will I. Besides, the more the merrier. See you later, Oliver. Red Sun said as he flew away. The arrow glared at Red Sun as he now had two unknown variables to deal with. A super-powered alien and this alien knowing who he was. Oliver returned to the bunker in a sour mood after his brief talk with Red Sun. He walked in to see Diggle with his arm in a sling and Felicity at her computer, watching the news coverage of Shrapnel's arrest. Starling City should probably build a bigger now that we're not dropping bodies. Felicity commented as Dig chuckled. Still, tonight was something for the record books. Stopped a terrorist and even got to get a good view of the aliens we've been reading and watching so much about. Diggle said as he exhaled. Man, still can't believe it's something real. Oh, it's real, Diggle. Oliver said in a worried tone that Dig and Felicity picked up. You sound worried. Felicity said. I had another run-in with Red Sun after he disposed of the bomb and Shrapnel was arrested. Oliver said. Another run-in? Dig asked. Red Sun showed up at the souvenir store when Oliver arrived. Felicity said. He was there to catch Shrapnel. Oliver said. Oliver, you think you and him at the same place and the same time is a coincidence, do you? Dig asked. No, but he managed to track down Shrapnel on his own and that's not it. He heard Felicity on our comms. Oliver said. You think we were hacked? Dig asked. No, I triple-checked our system and there was no foreign system or malware detected. I even checked for bugs but the place is clean. He has powers, what if he heard our conversation? Felicity said. Then he most likely knows about us. Dig said. He does. Oliver said as he took a breath. He knows who I am. How? Dig asked. I don't know. Oliver replied. But when we talked he seemed to know about what I've done. And he said that he's been in Starling City for a while and it seemed like he'll be staying. So, what do we do? Felicity asked. Powers or not, we need to find out everything we can about Red Sun. I don't like the idea of what's going to happen to this city with him here. And he knows who I am, we need to find out who he is and why he's here. Oliver said. Well, I'd think protecting the planet would be the obvious answer. Felicity stated. But why now? Red Sun and Superman only showed themselves when Metropolis was attacked. Did they come with the other aliens or before? I'll feel a lot safer when I get some answers. Oliver said as Felicity and Diggle nodded. Naruto returned to his apartment after flying around the city and checking for any incidents or crimes, but it was fairly quiet after Shrapnel was arrested. Naruto was in his apartment watching the news and calling Chloe to thank her. Hey, Chloe. I guess you're probably asleep or away from your phone, but I'm just calling to say thanks. Shrapnel's done, his bomb's defused and the city's safe. And I couldn't have done it without you. You're right, it feels good to be taking bad guys down together. Naruto said when he heard a knock at his door. There's someone here. I'll call you later, Chloe. Naruto hung up and walked to his door as the knocking continued. Coming. Naruto said as he opened his door and saw Laurel there with a bottle of wine. Laurel. Hey. Laurel said as Naruto smiled and opened his door. Come in. Naruto said as she walked in. Naruto closed the door behind as Laurel took off her coat. I thought you were stuck with depositions all night. Well, just like you, I finished my work early. Figured it was too late to go out, so I figured we'd have a drink indoors. Laurel said as she held up a bottle of wine. Perfect. I'll get the glasses. Naruto said as he got to wine glasses and Laurel opened the bottle of wine. The two sat down on Naruto's couch as Laurel poured the wine. You know, I'm glad you had to work late tonight. Really? Why's that? Laurel asked as she sat down and took a sip of wine. Well, if you didn't have to work then we might have gone to Blood's Unity rally and that was chaos tonight. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled. I'm not sure that my dad wanted me down there tonight. If I wasn't working, he would have lectured me on not going. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. So, your dad's a police officer and you work for the DA's office. Helping people and serving justice must run in the family. Naruto said as Laurel chuckled. It does. Laurel replied. Don't tell me, your mother is a judge. Naruto said. No. She was a lawyer but now she teaches it. Laurel said. Ah, teaching. That's got to be fun. Do you see that in your future or do you plan on being a judge or DA? Naruto asked as Laurel shrugged. If the future takes me that way. Laurel said. Well, it may not mean much coming from me, but I think the future holds big and great things for Laurel Lance. Naruto said as Laurel smiled. You're sweet. Laurel said as she kissed Naruto and he kissed back. Naruto put his wine glass down and reached his hand up and ran his fingers through her perfect brown hair. Laurel kissed back with more intensity as she ran her hands up and down his arms, feeling his defined muscles before putting her wine glass down and sitting on his lap. Naruto kissed back as he moved his hands to her waist. Eventually, the two separated to catch their breath. Wow. Naruto said as Laurel smirked and kissed him again as Naruto kissed back. So, are you okay with the couch, or do you plan on taking this someplace else? Laurel asked as Naruto smirked. He grabbed her legs and picked her up as he stood up from the couch. Laurel wrapped her legs around Naruto as he maneuvered his way around the living room and to the bedroom and closed the door with his leg. Line break XXXXX. The sun shined brightly the next day, signifying the start of a beautiful Saturday. Thankfully, with shrapnel captured and no longer a threat, the people of Starling City could breathe easy. The light shined through the drapes of Naruto's bedroom, filling his room with light and shining down on the bed. Laurel squinted her eyes and turned around to prevent the light from interrupting her sleep. She groaned as she tried to go back to sleep but couldn't. She then opened her eyes and sat up, hugging the bed sheet to her naked body as she looked around the bedroom and he was gone, but there was a fresh body print in the bed. Laurel looked at the door and saw Naruto walked into the bedroom wearing a pair of shorts and holding 2 cups of coffee. Hey, morning. Naruto said with a smile as Laurel smiled back. Morning. Laurel said as Naruto walked over and sat down next to her. Thought you might like some coffee. Naruto said as Laurel took the cup and drank some as the hot coffee woke her right up. With hazelnut coffee made and a little sugar. My favorite. Laurel said with a smile as Naruto smiled back. I've been known to pay attention every now and then. Naruto joked as he kissed Laurel and she kissed back. I've got to say, that last night was, Laurel said as she tried to come up with a word. Amazing, incredible, heavenly. Naruto asked as Laurel chuckled. Out of this world. Laurel said, which made Naruto chuckled. Well, that does a lot for my confidence. Naruto said with a smile. Well, since it's still early this Saturday, how about some breakfast? I've been told I make a killer omelet. Now I will take you up on that. Laurel said as she pulled Naruto onto the bed. But I think it's still too early for breakfast. Naruto smiled and placed his hands on her rear. Well, I can think of something we can do to pass the time. Naruto said as he kissed her. After some more bonding, Naruto and Laurel ate breakfast and then Laurel had to go back to her apartment for a change of clothes and a shower. They then went out for the day, went to see a movie, walked around the city, and had dinner. Sunday, both Naruto and Laurel had to finish some work for Monday but had dinner. Whenever Naruto wasn't with Laurel or had the chance, he super sped to the city or around the world whenever something needed his attention but nothing serious. And when he knew he had enough time, he flew to the fortress and began familiarizing himself with the Kryptonian computers, the robots, and the information on the 10,000 alien worlds the Kryptonians had contact with. A few days passed and nothing eventful happened, just stopping crime or busy with work. The Starling News began to report about Red Sun's saves and a lot of people in the city began to feel safer and hopeful with him to protect it, but some were cautious. Naruto hadn't run into Oliver since with ordeal with shrapnel, so he guessed that Oliver must have been busy with his own night activities or with Queen Consolidated. Unknown to Naruto, Oliver was actually using his free time when he wasn't out on patrol, at Queen Consolidated or tracking any leads on the man in the skull mask to finding out who Red Sun was. Oliver was in the bunker with Felicity and Diggle and they were going over their findings on who Red Sun was. Anything concrete, Felicity? Oliver asked as Felicity shook his head. Sorry. I used the image stills from the news and amateur photos to extrapolate a solid picture of Red Sun's face and ran it through my facial recognition program, but I came up with nothing. Felicity said as the screen read unable to recognize. I reached out to my government contacts but nothing. Diggle said. 5 days trying to figure out everything we can about Red Sun and we've only come up with a little. Some of his abilities, his general appearance and that he knows who we are. Oliver said as Felicity got an idea. I think I've got something. Felicity said as she began to write an algorithm and brought up the Queen consolidated satellite feeds. What are you doing? Oliver asked. Working a hunch. Felicity said as she brought up the Queen consolidated satellite images of the country with red lines that filled up the screen, going across and vertical. Okay, now this is a Queen consolidated satellite coverage of the country and using an algorithm, I had the scanners of the satellite calibrate to detect supersonic disturbances. Like planes or jets. Oliver said. Exactly, these red lines indicate objects moving at the speed of sound. Usually, they indicate jet craft but Superman and Red Sun move just as fast. Felicity said. By using this algorithm, you can scan Starling City and we can track down Red Sun. Oliver said as Felicity got to typing and the satellite focused on Starling City and dozens of red lines showed up. Okay, now I'm removing the red lines that correspond to jet craft. Felicity said as many of the red lines disappeared leaving about a dozen red lines that moved all throughout the city and around the world. Here is Red Sun's movements for the past few days. Man, he moves. Diggle said. Yeah, but there are places he visits often. There. Oliver said as he pointed to one of the parts on the map. What's that? It's a residential apartment complex. Felicity said as he pulled up the address. Could be where Red Sun is staying. Diggle said as Oliver nodded. What's the other one? It's a commercial building. A bunch of businesses are stationed there. We've got some tech companies, a financial firm and a publishing company. Felicity said as something clicked in Oliver's mind. Which one? Oliver asked. Random House Publishing Company. Felicity said as Oliver got an idea of who Red Sun might be. So, he walked over to a table and grabbed his motorcycle helmet. Where you going? Diggle asked. I think I know who Red Sun is. I'm going to see for myself. Oliver said. You need some backup? Diggle asked. No. It's just a fact-finding mission. I'll be fine. Oliver said as he got on his bike and left. Naruto finished work, got some groceries, and left for his apartment. He walked up the stairs with the bag of groceries in one arm and his phone in the other. Wait, Clark. Back up a sec. So Luther knows about kryptonite? Naruto asked as he walked up the stairs. Yeah, it was during a break-in at one of his museums. One of the meteors on display came from Smallville and Luther saw the security footage of what happened. When I got too close to it, I got weak and now Luther knows kryptonite can hurt us. Although, I think that's all he knows about it. He doesn't know what else it can do. Clark said. 2. This is not good. Naruto said. Yeah, I confronted Luther and he isn't backing down. Clark said. Okay, well he only has one rock of kryptonite. And there isn't that much left in Smallville or around the world. So, we'll just need to keep an eye out on Luther from now on. Was he supplying weapons to Intergang? Naruto asked as he made it to his floor and walked to his apartment. No, actually. The tech behind Intergang's new weapons was way too advanced to come from LexCorp. Clark said as Naruto took out his keys. You think military? Naruto asked. No, it seemed alien. Clark said as Naruto was intrigued and worried. Well, that's not good. Okay, keep me posted. If those weapons make it out of Metropolis then we'll have bigger issues. Naruto said as he opened his door. Got it. Talk to you later. Clark said as he hung up. Naruto hung up and opened his door. He put his phone in his pocket and walked in when the bottom of his grocery bags ripped open, spilling all his groceries on the floor. Damn it. Naruto said as he tossed the ripped bag into the kitchen. Naruto was about to grab his groceries when he stopped. He peeked outside his door and saw the hallway was empty. Naruto then used his super speed and quickly grabbed his dropped groceries and put them on his kitchen counter. And people call me a split personality. Naruto heard as he turned around and saw Oliver Queen leaning against his doorway holding a can of soup. Oliver tossed the can of soup and Naruto caught it with one hand as Oliver walked in. Oliver Queen. I guess you can add detective to your resume. Naruto said as he put the can of soup on the counter. Took a while to figure out everything. You did a good job at keeping your secret. Oliver said. Something Superman and I pride ourselves on. Naruto said. You mean, Clark? Oliver asked as Naruto looked at him. Naruto and Clark Kent, adopted sons of Jonathan and Martha Kent. From Smallville, Kansas but not a lot there. Before your adoption, you didn't seem to exist. Now I know why. You did your homework. Naruto said. I'm not comfortable with threats to my city. Oliver said. Oh, you see me as a threat? Naruto asked. If you were me, wouldn't you feel the same way? You and Superman show up during the invasion of Metropolis as aliens, with abilities. And you figured out who I was. How? Oliver asked. I looked through your mask. X-ray vision. And when you mean you're not comfortable, do you mean with me being here or with me and Laurel? Naruto asked as Oliver looked at him. I take it she doesn't know who you really are. Oliver said. No. But I figure she doesn't know what you do at night. Naruto replied. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell her who you are. That's not my secret to tell. Thank you. And let me return the favor. Stay away from her. Oliver said. If she wants to break it off with me then I won't stop her, but I'm not going to give up on Laurel and I unless she wants to. Naruto said as Oliver could tell he was serious. Laurel's been through a lot and I don't want to see her get hurt. Oliver said as he walked up to Naruto, not intimidated at all. I would never do anything to hurt her. And what makes you think that being with someone isn't what she wants? Naruto said as he stared down Oliver. I heard a lot about how you used to be, and what she's been through. Maybe being with someone who cares about her is what she needs. I've done things I'm not proud of, but I'm not that kind of person anymore. And everything I do now, is keep the people I care about safe. That includes Laurel. Oliver said. Then she's as safe as she can be with me. Naruto said. Does Laurel even know the truth about you? About who you really are? Oliver asked. Not yet. But I plan to tell her the truth when she's ready to know. Naruto said as Oliver looked at him. How do you know she's ready to know the truth? If you tell her the truth you could lose her and drive her away. Oliver said. I've learned that once people get to know you the truth isn't that big of a change. But when she's ready I'll tell her the truth. Naruto said as Oliver took this moment to leave. I'm not your enemy, Oliver. Clark and I are here to protect the planet. But who will protect the planet from you? Oliver asked as he left. Line break XXXXX. A few days had passed and Naruto hadn't seen Oliver after their brief talk in his apartment. He guessed he was keeping his distance or doing whatever research he could on him and Clark to learn more about them. Naruto didn't judge him for it, from his experience it was a perfectly normal response. Naruto was currently at work, finishing up some reports that were going to his bosses at the company. He was in his office finishing up some reports when he heard his door open. Never thought I'd get used to the sight of you behind a desk. Naruto heard as he looked up and saw Chloe and Jimmy standing in the doorway. Chloe. Jimmy. Naruto said as he got up and grabbed Chloe in a tight hug and lifted her up as he chuckled. Oh, it's good to see you. You too. Chloe said as Naruto and Jimmy bro hugged. What are you guys doing here? You two didn't get fired, right? Naruto asked as Chloe scoffed. Of course, not. Perry wanted his best for the Starling City benefit on Friday. A lot of Metropolis business leaders will be there. Chloe said. Luther won't be there, will he? Naruto asked. No, he's overseas for a business meeting. Chloe said as Naruto nodded. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys came to visit. How are Clark and Lois? Naruto asked. Oh, good as can be. Happy and enjoying being together like before but with no secrets. It's honestly a bit annoying. Chloe said as Naruto chuckled. Well, I'm glad they're doing good. I always knew they were meant to be. Naruto said. Oh, yeah, from their first moments of driving each other crazy. Chloe joked. That is textbook flirting. Anyway, enough about them. What about you, Chloe? Anyone special? Naruto asked as Chloe pushed some hair behind her ear. Several blind dates and all end in disaster. Chloe said as Jimmy pat her shoulder. Oh, I'm sorry. Naruto said as Chloe shrugged. Oh, it's okay. It's hard to find someone with shared life experiences. Chloe said. Well, someone will come along. I know it. Naruto said as Chloe smiled. You always do. It's like your superpower. Chloe joked as Naruto chuckled. And Jimmy, how's it going with Lucy? Naruto asked as Jimmy smiled. So far, so good. Things are great and her and Lois are as good as can be. Jimmy said as Naruto smiled. Awesome. Well, come on. Since you guys came to Starling, let's get something to eat. My treat. Naruto said as he walked over and grabbed his jacket. Don't you have to finish work? Jimmy asked as Naruto smirked. He looked out his window and made sure no one was looking his way and quickly super sped his hands and quickly finished all his paperwork. Done. Naruto said as he put on his jacket. Come on, I've got an idea for dinner. They returned to Naruto's apartment and settled in while Naruto quickly super sped to Chine for some awesome takeout. What better place to get Peking duck than the place it was born, and he stopped a building fire on his way back. Naruto, Chloe, and Jimmy were in his living room with cartons and bags of awesome Chinese food on the table as they enjoyed some nice, quiet time. Hey, do we have any more dumplings? Jimmy asked as Naruto looked around at the empty containers. After Naruto ate 16, I'm not sure. Chloe said as Naruto smirked at her. He moved an empty rice carton and found some more dumplings. Ah, here. Naruto said as he handed them to Jimmy and Jimmy was so happy eating great food. This is so good. Jimmy said as Naruto and Chloe chuckled. Yeah, all this food is great but trust me, it'll take its toll before long. Chloe said as she rubbed her stomach. Relax, Chloe, you look great. Naruto said as Chloe tossed her empty noodle carton at his head. Oh, shut up. Lucky aliens. Chloe said. I won't argue with you there. One of the perks on being on Earth, I won't get fat. Naruto said as he finished his noodles and took a sip of beer. Yeah, while I have an appointment with a treadmill later. Chloe said as Jimmy finished his dumplings. So, I never asked. How is the piece you're doing on Intergang? Is Clark right? Is there tech alien? Naruto asked. Definitely. I don't think there is any kind of human tech in the world that can produce weapons that make physical light constructs. Chloe said. 3. You think they took tech from Zod's ship? Jimmy asked. No. I don't think so. Kryptonian technology can't doing anything like that, not that I've seen. Naruto said when his super hearing picked up the sound of Laurel walking to his door. Crap. Naruto quickly super sped around the place and put away all the extra food, leaving just the extra he got for Laurel and cleaned up a bit. Huh, guess that comes in handy. Jimmy said as they heard a knock at the door. That's Laurel, guys. She doesn't know what I can do, so ease it up on the alien things. Naruto said as Chloe and Jimmy nodded. Naruto walked to the door and opened it to see Laurel in her work clothes with her arms full of documents. Hey, sorry I'm late. Laurel said as Naruto grabbed her papers and helped her in. No problem. Naruto said as they briefly kissed and Laurel walked in and smelled some great Chinese food. Dinner's warm and there are some people I'd like you to meet. Laurel took off her jacket and saw a short woman with short blonde hair and a young, tall African American man. Laurel, these are two of my best friends. This is Chloe Sullivan and Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy, Chloe, this is Laurel Lance. Naruto said as Laurel smiled and shook their hands. It's so nice to finally meet you. Chloe said as she shook Laurel's hand and Jimmy shook hers. Yeah, Naruto's been talking non-stop about you. It's nice to put a face to the name. Jimmy said as Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Non-stop? Laurel asked. I think Jimmy is exaggerating a bit. Naruto joked. No, he's pretty dead on. Chloe joked back as everyone chuckled. It's great to meet you too. Naruto's told me a lot and it's nice to meet you both. Now, I can get some more juicy stories about Naruto's childhood pranks. Laurel joked as Chloe chuckled. Believe me, I have a whole book of those to tell you. And a couple of secrets that'll come in handy if you ever need them. Chloe joked as they all sat down while Naruto brought Laurel a glass of wine and the Chinese food. I still can't believe that you two know each other. I mean, I read that article you and Lois Lane wrote about the Battle of Metropolis, at least a dozen times. Laurel said as Chloe nodded. Yeah, that was a great day for journalism, if you don't mind the potential of death, but I've been there before. Chloe joked as Naruto and Jimmy chuckled. And she's not joking. Naruto said. So, what were they like? Superman and Red Sun. I mean, from the articles of the Daily Planet, it seems like you two, Lois Lane and Clark Kent must know them pretty well. Laurel said as Naruto, Jimmy and Chloe shared a glance. The big guys have saved our butts a lot. And they're pretty nice once you get to know them. Jimmy said. So, they're like us? Laurel asked. Yeah, they may be aliens but they're not like Zod or the others who came with him. They're nice and Metropolis and the world is a lot safer with them around. Chloe said. Red Sun has been seen in Starling City a lot. Have you seen him at all? Jimmy asked. Just in the news. I haven't had a glimpse of him yet. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. Do you want to? Naruto asked. I mean, of course. The chance to meet an alien in person. Laurel said as Naruto chuckled. I'm sure it'll happen. Naruto said as Laurel hummed as she ate the amazing food. This is so good. I thought it would be cold. Laurel said. I warmed it up. What took you so long? DA got you busy on a trial or something? Naruto asked. No, actually something a bit more serious. The police caught a dead body. Laurel said as Naruto looked at her. Isn't that normal? I mean, people die every day. Chloe said. True, but this one was different. The victim is Elizabeth Saunders. Laurel said as Jimmy raised an eyebrow. Wait, why does that name sound familiar? Jimmy asked. That because Elizabeth Saunders happens to be the CFO for Confed Biotech. One of Metropolis's biggest biotech companies, next to LexCorp. She was in Starling for the benefit tomorrow night, but I don't think she'll make it. Laurel said as they exhaled. Geez. What happened? Naruto asked. We're still not sure, but we think she was murdered. Since the victim was such a big industrial leader and was in Starling, the DA's office is trying to handle the situation as best as we can. Laurel said. Saunders was married. Did they think it was her husband? Chloe asked. No, the blood on the scene suggests he and the driver were attacked too. Could be a mugging gone wrong, but I don't think it was. Laurel said. What makes you think that? Naruto asked. Because her wallet and jewelry were still on her and she wasn't killed with a knife or a gun. She was impaled on the branch of a 100 featuring tree near Crescent Hills. Laurel said as Chloe and Jimmy raised an eyebrow. Crescent Hills? Chloe asked. It's Starling's richest and fanciest neighborhood. It's about 5 minutes from the city and near the Starling City Dam. Not exactly the kind of place you'd expect to find a Metropolis power couple. Naruto said. No, she was there for a dinner at a friend's house. From what the police gathered, her and her husband went to the dinner, left the party to get some private time, and Elizabeth was found dead while her husband and driver are gone. The SCPD are still looking for him. Laurel said. Did they have any suspects? Naruto asked. The people at the dinner didn't see anything suspicious, so we don't know. But all I know for sure is that I'm going to be busy tomorrow. I hope that's okay. Laurel said as she looked at Naruto. That's fine. I plan on spending the day with Jimmy and Chloe. Naruto said as Chloe and Jimmy nodded. Line break XXXXX. The next day, Laurel went to work while Naruto worked from home, which took about 30 minutes to deal with all the paperwork and things he had to do. While Naruto quickly worked on his paperwork, Jimmy left with Chloe to do some of the interviews for the story Perry wanted her to write about the benefit tonight, but Naruto had her run down any leads she could find on Elizabeth Saunders' death. Something about that seemed out of the ordinary. Naruto had finished his work about 4 hours ago, and texted Laurel back as Chloe and Jimmy walked into his apartment. Hey, guys. Did you find anything? Naruto asked. Oh yeah. Definitely some things you need to see. Chloe said as they sat down in his kitchen. So, after we did our quick interviews for the piece that Perry wants, we did a little investigating on the weird death Laurel told us about. And something was not right, if you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean. Naruto joked as Chloe huffed. We researched the party that Laurel said Saunders went with her husband and talked with some of the guests who saw them, and none of them reported anything out of the ordinary. No strange guests or people at the party, and the driver was contracted through a car company and he hasn't reported in for work. Chloe said. We did some research and we don't think Mr. Saunders did this. They were happily married and nothing seemed out of the ordinary with their financials, and everyone we talked to said nothing but happy things. Jimmy said as he showed them some pictures, and it seemed like the two were in a genuinely happy marriage. We made a quick stop by Crescent Hills to get a look at what happened on the road, and from the looks of it the car was wrecked and it looked like it happened quickly. We snuck into the hospital, peeked a bit at some files and did some research, and Laurel was right, the death wasn't normal. Impaling people in trees that high, in that short amount of time isn't humanly possible. Chloe said as Naruto realized where she was going with this. Unless the guy was infected with kryptonite. Naruto said as Chloe nodded. That might be our smoking gun. Chloe replied. Wait, what do you guys mean infected with kryptonite? I thought kryptonite only affected Kryptonians. Jimmy asked. Not exactly. You know, Chloe and I grew up in Smallville, the site of the meteor shower that brought Clark and I to Earth, and with it kryptonite, the remnants of Krypton. Naruto said as Jimmy nodded. Right, it affects you guys, which is why it helped you with that crazy Kryptonian woman. Jimmy said. Yes, you're welcome by the way. Chloe said as Naruto nodded. When we were in high school, we found out that kryptonite can affect people if they are exposed to it for long. Affect them how? Jimmy asked. It gifted people with powers. Naruto said. Seriously? Jimmy asked as Chloe and Naruto nodded. Yeah, Chloe has powers. Naruto said as Chloe nodded reluctantly. Wait, what? Jimmy asked. It's not as great as it seems. Believe me, I was freaked out at first. Chloe said as Naruto rubbed her shoulder. But I had Clark and Naruto there to help me. So, what can you do? Jimmy asked. I can bring someone back to life, even if near death, but I end up in a dead-like coma that lasts a day. Not that great. Chloe said as Naruto smiled. Chloe's one of the good ones. But the other crypto villains we faced in high school were dangerous. The fact that they had these powers made them feel invincible, but they turned psychotic. Clark and I ended up saving Chloe and Lana from dozens of them over the years. Naruto said. Oh yeah. One tried to psychically impale with farm implements and the other wanted to turn me into a popsicle. Good times. Chloe joked. Most of them are in Bellevue Mental Asylum in Metropolis. Clark and I put them there, but there could be a lot more people affected that we never knew of. Some aren't dangerous, just trying to live normal lives. Naruto said as Jimmy nodded. Well, I think this guy fits into the first category. How do we find him? Jimmy asked. We check out the kill site for clues. Naruto said. Jimmy and Chloe got their stuff and made their way to the road where the Saunders car crashed and the surrounding forest where Elizabeth Saunders' body was found. They made their way to site as the police had closed off the direct area where Elizabeth Saunders' body was found while they had patrols and emergency services volunteers searching the surrounding area for any sign of the husband and driver. Naruto, Chloe, and Jimmy showed up to the forest to see that the police were too focused on the search to see them. All right, we've got a large search grid. Jimmy and I will start here and meet you where the body was found. Chloe said as Naruto nodded and super sped into the forest. Naruto super sped through the forest and stopped around the area the body was found. He began walking around, using his super and X-ray vision to find any kind of clue that would point to something out of the ordinary. You're not supposed to be here. Naruto heard as he turned to see a female police officer. Naruto looked at her name plate, Officer Reed. I'm sorry. I'm with the volunteers for the search party. Naruto Kent. Naruto said as Officer Reed smiled. Gloria Reed. Officer Reed said as Naruto nodded. They find anything yet? I've been over this area and I haven't found anything. No, nothing. It's a big forest. Naruto said. Are you here with a partner? No, by myself. I prefer it. Alone, with nature. Officer Reed said as she looked at Naruto. We haven't met before, have we? I don't think so. I'm sure I'd remember. Naruto said as Officer Reed smiled. Well, let's keep searching. Another look can't hurt. Naruto used his X-ray vision and kept looking when he saw the skeletons of two men. I think I see them, go get help. Naruto said as he ran over while Officer Reed called for backup. Naruto ran over and moved some branches and bushed out of the way to see two cocoon-like structures of sharp branches. Naruto. He heard Chloe shouted. I'm over here. Naruto shouted as Jimmy and Chloe ran over and saw the two bodies. Naruto moved the bush off and saw Mr. Saunders open his eyes. They're alive. Naruto grabbed the branches to pull them off and break them but felt a sharp and painful pierce. Ah! Naruto shouted as he let go and looked at his hands and couldn't believe what he saw. Chloe and Jimmy ran over and saw Naruto looked at his hands and saw dozens of little cuts and blood. Oh, my god. Naruto, you're bleeding. Chloe said as the cuts on his hands sealed up. The police arrived on the scene and the paramedics cut Mr. Saunders and the driver free, gave them a brief checkup before sending them to Starling General. Naruto, Chloe, and Jimmy arrived at the hospital to continue their own investigation. When they arrived at the hospital, they stated they were there to check on the well-being of the victims and to see if they were okay, but they had to answer questions from the police. Naruto was in the main lobby of the building speaking with Officer Lance about what happened and what he saw. They didn't suspect him of doing this, it was protocol. And then I saw the bundle of branches, like a cocoon, and got a closer look, and that's when I saw the body. Naruto said as Officer Lance wrote this down. Got it. I guess old habits die hard, huh? Lance joked as Naruto chuckled. Yeah, well, if I see something bad happening it's hard to walk away. Naruto replied as Lance nodded. That's good, but don't get too reckless. You're not exactly bulletproof. Lance joked as Naruto chuckled. Oh, if you only knew. Naruto thought as he saw Laurel walk into the hospital. Laurel. Naruto. Laurel ran over and hugged him as he hugged back and kissed her head. I heard you were the witness, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. After hearing what happened, Chloe, Jimmy and I wanted to help. I guess I can't stop being a hero. Naruto joked as Laurel smiled. Thanks to your boyfriend, doctors were able to stabilize Mr. Sanders and his driver. They're gonna pull through. Lance said. Good. That's good. Laurel said. You did a good thing today, Naruto. Just don't make a habit out of it. Laurel's got enough to worry about with one hero in the family. Lance said as he shook Naruto's hand and left to go talk to the lead detective. Wow, I'd never thought I'd see the day that my dad was okay with my boyfriend. Laurel said as Naruto smiled. I guess that means he must really like me. Score 1 for Naruto. Naruto said as Laurel smiled and kissed him. Oh, score 2 for me. You'll score again tonight. I promise. Laurel said as Naruto smiled and kissed her. I'll see you later. I need to go talk to Donner. Naruto nodded as Laurel left to talk to Ada Donner and the police captain about their next move. Naruto saw Chloe and Jimmy finish with the police and moved away to talk in private. I heard from the police they think that Mr. Saunders and the driver are going to pull through, but I also heard one of the nurses say that something weird was found when they brought them in. Chloe said as they made their way to the floor where Mr. Saunders and the driver were being treated. They walked out of the elevators and down the hall but stopped a few doors down from the rooms where Mr. Saunders and the driver were being treated because there were police stationed outside. Well, I don't think we'll be able to take a sneak peek at his charts with the cops around. Chloe said as they saw the police stand guard. Looks like we'll need to figure something else out. Jimmy said. Jimmy, can I borrow your camera? Naruto asked as Jimmy gave it to him. Wait here. Naruto walked into an empty room and closed the door. What's he gonna? Swoosh! Jimmy was cut off as a huge swoosh of air rushed past them, through the hallway, and into the room of Mr. Saunders before coming back, and Naruto appeared next to Chloe and Jimmy. Chloe and Jimmy looked and saw the hospital staff and police look around in confusion at the sudden rush of air before going back to their business. Faster than a bullet and unseeable to the naked eye. Took some pictures while I was in there. Naruto said as he handed the camera to Jimmy. Nicely done, Kent. Chloe joked as they looked at the pictures, but they were too small. They're too small. I'll get these to a printer and we'll check them out later. Jimmy said as they nodded and made their way out of the hospital. So, what did you see in there? You think we're right on this one? Another crypto villain? Chloe asked as Naruto nodded. Definitely. The attack wasn't normal. Naruto said as he saw Oliver walk into the hospital and their gazes met. You guys go ahead. Chloe and Jimmy left as Naruto walked up to Oliver. What are you doing here? Naruto asked. Concerned citizen. I heard what happened. You. Oliver asked. Witness. The police needed to interview me and I wanted to check up on them. Naruto said as Oliver looked at him. I suppose you are here to get any kind of evidence you can onto who did this. I have my own suspicions as to who did this. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not what you think. Stay away from this. You don't want to get hurt. Naruto said as Oliver looked at him. That almost sounded like a threat. Oliver replied. It's not. But you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. My job is to protect people and I'm telling you that if you dig deeper into this you could get hurt. You're good, Oliver, but with this, leave it to me. Naruto said as he left. Line break XXXXX. After Oliver's trip to the hospital and a quick glance at the hospital records, he returned to the foundry where Diggle and Felicity were waiting for him. After the news broke out of what happened to Mrs. Saunders, Oliver suspected it was the work of a Mirakuru-enhanced human. Naruto walked into the bunker and saw Felicity and Diggle talking near the computers. Oliver, did you get what you needed from the hospital? Diggle asked. Yes, but now I have more questions than answers. Oliver said as Felicity noticed her computer was done with a search she was doing. Well, hopefully I can help answer some of those questions. The police managed to recover a print from the crime scene that didn't belong to Mr. Saunders or the driver, so it might have been left by the killer. My program finished shadowing their system, so now we have access. Felicity said as Diggle and Oliver walked over. And Oliver asked. No hits in the local criminal database, FBI or DMV. Felicity said as she noticed something. Wait a minute, that's odd. What is? Diggle asked. The fingerprint, it wasn't recognized. Felicity said. So, our killer isn't in their database. Oliver said. No, I mean the program couldn't recognize it. The fingerprint couldn't be read and now I see why. Felicity said as she brought up an image of the fingerprint and they saw it wasn't like a normal human fingerprint that had lines and grooves. This fingerprint looked like a crazy, jumbled 200-piece puzzle of lines and curves. It wasn't like someone who had cut off and re-stitched their fingerprints back on. From the photo, you could clearly tell that it was a clean fingerprint, just not a human one. What on earth? Oliver said in confusion as they have never seen anything like this before. How is that possible? Diggle asked. It's not humanly possible. There are rare types of fingerprints but this isn't possible. Nothing could cause this kind of pattern. Felicity said. So, our killer isn't Mirakuru enhanced but something else. Oliver said. That's why Red Sun wanted me to back off. Excuse me? Felicity asked. I ran into Red Sun at the hospital. He found the bodies and he told me to back off the case, said I'd get hurt. Oliver told them. Wow, guess you're not used to hearing that. Diggle said as Oliver looked at him. Maybe he has a point. Red Sun is an alien, maybe whatever this thing that attacked the Saunders is also an alien. It would explain the weird fingerprint and the fact that the police needed heavy-duty equipment to get the bodies out of the vines. Felicity said. Did they run tests on the plants? Oliver asked. Yes, it should be done by now. Felicity said as she brought up the data. They sent a piece of the vine to a lab to get it tested and it came back, foreign. As in foreign chemicals in the plants. Oliver asked. Foreign to the planet Earth. The composition matches nothing to other planets and is composed of chemicals that don't appear on the periodic table. This thing is definitely alien. Felicity said as Oliver looked at the data. It's nice to know that there is plant life on other planets. And in this case, female plant life. What? Oliver asked. Plants have sex and the one thing the tests were able to detect was that the plants were female. Felicity said as something clicked in Oliver's head. And it would need a male to reproduce. Elizabeth Saunders was killed by this thing while Mr. Saunders and his driver were kept alive. Oliver said as he grabbed his jacket and helmet. I need to confirm something. Felicity, find me something else we can use to find this thing. While Oliver learned the mysterious circumstances of Elizabeth Saunders' death, Naruto was looking at the photos he took in the hospital that they printed out. From the pictures, Naruto could see the serious wounds Mr. Saunders and his driver suffered from whoever did this. Naruto looked at the picture of the X-rays taken when his phone rang. He looked and saw it was Chloe. Hey, Chloe. Naruto said. Hey, Naruto. Any new updates? Chloe asked. Nothing. From the pictures Jimmy printed, I haven't learned anything new. I guess I'll have to do some snooping at the hospital or even ask the police. Naruto said. Okay. Jimmy and I are heading to the charity gala now, but if you need us just call. Chloe told him. Got it. Have fun and enjoy yourself. Bye. Naruto said as he hung up. He got back to looking at the photos and stopped on one of the X-rays of Mr. Saunders when he noticed that one of the X-rays of Mr. Saunders' stomach looked weird. Naruto narrowed his eyes and used his super and micro vision and could see they looked like small pods. What the hell? Naruto said to himself as he looked through the other photos of the X-rays and they showed up in the driver's stomach as well. Naruto got up and grabbed his keys, on his way to the hospital for some more information but he quickly put his suit on and his regular clothes over. He super sped to an alley without cameras near the hospital and made his way back to the Mr. Saunders floor. As he exited the elevator, he saw Oliver finish a conversation with a nurse he charmed. Naruto walked out of the elevator and down the hall as Oliver walked with him. I'm guessing you didn't take my advice. Naruto said. I'm known to be stubborn, especially when it comes to protecting this city. I can guess you're here to get some more answers. Oliver said. Something like that. Naruto replied as they turned the corner. Like how an alien plant found its way to Earth. Oliver said as Naruto stopped and faced him. Alien. That answers some questions I've been having. Naruto said. I guess having all those powers doesn't give you all the answers you're looking for. Oliver said as Naruto smirked. How did you find out? This Felicity, I'm guessing. Oliver said. I have my ways. The important thing now is to find out where the alien is. Oliver said. Before it hurts more people. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Wet explosion and scream. Oliver and Naruto heard the sound of the scream as they saw 4 nurses run out of the operating rooms of Mr. Saunders and his driver. Get Dr. Strom. I'm issuing a code red. One of the nurses said as they ran. Naruto and Oliver walked to the room and saw a bloodbath. Oh, my god. Oliver said as they saw vines spread out all over the room, but they didn't come through a window. They appeared from Mr. Saunders' stomach and seemed to burst from it, killing him. Naruto looked in the other room and saw the driver dead as well with the explosion of vines from his stomach. While Naruto went to the other room, Oliver was shocked at what he saw. He had seen things that were not normal, but this was different. All of a sudden, sparks shot out from a wall outlet when a vine dug in and resulted in a power surge. Oliver looked closer and saw the vine that was shocked turned black. He grabbed it and easily broke off a piece as it crumbled in his hands. Oliver realized something and wiped his hands as he saw Naruto leave. I don't suppose you've ever seen an alien that can do that? Oliver asked. No. To be honest, I never had any contact with other aliens besides Kryptonians, but that doesn't mean we can't stop it. Naruto said. Her. Oliver corrected him. What? Naruto asked. The plant has a sex, it's a female. Oliver told him. And needs a male to reproduce. That's why Elizabeth Saunders was killed and her husband and her driver weren't. When did you figure that out? Naruto asked. When the tests on the plant's biology came back. But what the hell happened back there? Oliver asked. I think Mr. Saunders and his driver were used as hosts for seed pods. I saw them in an X-ray of their stomachs and I guess that's the result of them being in there for so long. She needs to be stopped before she hurts more people. Naruto said as they saw two paramedics bring in a fresh body. Get the ready, female officer by Crescent Hills. Her body was found this morning, so contact the police for an ID. Her badge was missing but possible ID is Officer Reed. The paramedic said. Excuse me. I think I can ID her. Naruto told them as the paramedic unzipped the bag to show the face of a 20-something-year-old brunette. I'm sorry, but that's not Officer Reed. One of the paramedics came by with a file on the police officer and looked in it to confirm the identity. No, this is her. Officer Diane Reed, Starling City Police, went missing a week ago. The paramedic said as Naruto realized who the alien was. Gloria. Naruto said as he left the building as Oliver followed him. He tried to get him to stop, but as soon as Naruto was clear, he super sped away. Oliver ran to his bike and left to get suited up. Line break XXXXX. Naruto stopped around the same area he found the bodies in the woods of Crescent Hills. Gloria. Naruto shouted as he looked around for her. I was hoping to see you again. Naruto heard behind him. He turned around and saw Gloria standing there in the police uniform. What are you? Naruto asked. I'm just a girl who loves nature. She replied as Naruto shook her head. You're not human. You're not from this planet. Naruto stated. No, but I think I'm going to like it here. Gloria replied. Well, wherever you're from, go back. This is your only warning. Naruto told her. I can't. My world is gone. It was a paradise, lush and green. So, full of life. But towers of steel replaced the forests, upsetting the balance of nature. So, I tried to correct it. Gloria told him. At the cost of how many lives? I saw what you did to those two men. Naruto said as Gloria shook her head. They didn't understand me either. They branded me a criminal and imprisoned me in a desolate wasteland where the sun never sets and nothing ever grows. Gloria said as Naruto realized where she was from. The Phantom Zone. Well, from what I saw, you were sent there for a good reason. And it's time you go back. Naruto said as Gloria recognized him. She walked around and stepped away. I knew I recognized you. You and your Kryptonian brother opened the gateway and freed me from that prison. An eternity in that wasteland, I'm never going back. Gloria said as Naruto tightened his fists. Well, you can't stay here. You can't kill people in cold blood. Naruto warned her. It's not killing, it's nature correcting the balance. And I'm not done. I learned there's a gathering not far from here full of eligible suitors, waiting for me to spread my beauty. Gloria said with a demented smile. That's not going to happen. Naruto said as he grabbed her shoulder. Who's gonna stop me? She asked with a smile as a large vine wrapped itself around Naruto's waist and pulled him back. It pulled him into a network of vines that began wrapping and constricting his limbs and throat. Naruto tried to break free, but he could feel the vines sapping his strength. He couldn't even focus to use his heat vision. Don't bother. My vines tasted your Kryptonian energy, it only makes them stronger. Gloria said as Naruto found himself getting weaker and weaker. I can't change my nature, and now, no one can stop me. Gloria turned around and super sped away from him and towards the city. Naruto guessed she was heading to the charity gala. It was full of men for her to plant seeds but would kill everyone else there. Naruto pulled his arms to break free, but every time he pulled at the vines, he could feel himself getting weaker and the vines stronger. About half an hour passed and Naruto felt himself getting weaker and weaker as the sun started to set. He heard some rustling and footsteps coming closer and saw Oliver walk up, dressed up in his hood with his bow out. Oliver looked at Naruto and saw him weak and struggling, so he pulled out a metallic-tipped arrow and knocked it back. Naruto saw that Oliver was aiming at him before he aimed the arrow a little to the left and released. The arrow hit one of the big vines and released a huge torrent of electricity, causing the vines to writhe and shake in pain. Naruto pulled his arm and snapped the vines that were holding him and broke free. He dropped to the ground on his knees and saw the vines shake and writhe in pain before turning to ash. Oliver walked over and held his hand out to Naruto. Naruto took it and stood up as he looked at the sun and the cuts on his face and arms sealed up immediately, and he could feel his powers getting stronger. Thanks. Naruto said. Don't mention it. Figured you could use a hand. Arrow said. How did you know electricity would work? Naruto asked. I saw it work at the hospital. Electricity denatures enzymes. I take it the alien got away. Arrow said. I know where she's going. The charity gala in the city. She plans on infecting more men with those seeds. Naruto said as he took off his shirt and jacket to show his suit and activated his facial disguise. I'll meet you there. Arrow said as Naruto looked at him. It'll take you too long to get there. Naruto said as he super sped to Oliver's side. Hold your breath. What do you? Oliver was cut off as Naruto grabbed him and super sped him out of Crescent Hills into the hotel plaza where the gala was being held in about 3 seconds. Naruto stopped near the alley entrance and Oliver stumbled a bit and groaned at the sudden movement, gave him a little whiplash. You okay? Naruto asked. I'm fine. Arrow said as he shook his head and saw 2 people walk out of the side entrance. One was a man working for the catering company hosting the event and the other was Gloria. She found her first victim. That's her. Naruto said as the arrow fired an arrow near Gloria, causing her and the man to turn. What are you guys doing? The man asked. Our jobs, now go. Red Sun said as the man ran back inside. It's over. The arrow said as he knocked another arrow. It seems you brought a friend. Oh, and a human. We'll have lots of fun. Gloria said. Not going to happen. The arrow said. It's over. Red Sun said. Kryptonians. Always so cold and heartless. Gloria said. Only when it comes to murderers. You can't go home and I can't let you stay here. Red Sun said. I'm not going anywhere. She said as she raised her fists and vines shot out from the concrete ground and knocked Red Sun out of the alley and into the street. The arrow saw this happen and quickly fired his arrow, but Gloria caught it with her bare hand. Cute. She said as she snapped it in half. Oliver fired more arrows, but she quickly dodged them with her enhanced speed before punching him out of the alley. He would have hit a car, but Red Sun caught him before he did. Thanks. The arrow replied. That makes us even. Red Sun said as they saw Gloria appear in the street. Just because this city doesn't have as much nature as the forest, doesn't mean I can't control what's here. She said as she raised her arms and the trees that were planted on the sidewalk began to sprout vines that immediately launched at the 2 heroes. Red Sun fired his heat vision and burned 2 vines while the arrow jumped and dodged. Red Sun looked around the street and saw a fire hydrant, which gave him an idea. You have another electric arrow? Red Sun asked as the arrow nodded. On you. Go. The arrow shouted as Red Sun super sped around Gloria to a nearby fire hydrant. When are you going to realize? You can't fight nature. Gloria shouted as she summoned more vines. You're not nature. Red Sun said as he yanked off the top of the fire hydrant and used his foot to push it at Gloria. The arrow fired 4 electric taser arrows and hit the water, releasing a huge electric shock. Ah! Gloria shouted in pain, and water provided the perfect conduit for the electricity to surge through her body. The vines she summoned writhed and withered in pain before turning to ash and died. Gloria's body enlarged and turned green like her vines before the electricity killed her and turned her body to ash. Red Sun placed the fire hydrant top back on and bent it back in place before walking over the ashes as the arrow joined him. Nice shot. Red Sun said as the arrow looked at him. Thanks. The arrow said as they left, but unknown to them, Jimmy and Chloe had snuck out of the party when they heard a commotion outside and Jimmy snapped a photo of Red Sun and the arrow together. Front page material. The next day, news of the charity gala's success was the front page news as many businessmen and women donated money to various charities and foundations in Starling to help the city. They were completely unaware of the fight that occurred outside, which baffled the police, who saw a destroyed car en route. Chloe and Jimmy were at Naruto's apartment, talking about what happened. So, the plants and the officer, she was an alien from the Phantom Zone. Chloe asked. Yeah. She said she escaped the same time Clark and I did. Naruto replied. So, she made one of those craters that Chloe found. Jimmy said. So, one's gone, but we might have others. Chloe said. Yeah. Our problems are just starting. These criminals from the Phantom Zone, they're powered and they won't care who they hurt. Naruto said. And we know they have powers that can hurt you and Clark. We need to find the others, and that means getting satellite coverage of the day of Zod's invasion. Chloe said as Naruto thought for a moment. I might be able to do something about that. Naruto said. End of chapter 2.